Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. It's May 30th, 2024. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 signing of the Acts of 23, extending certain COVID measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until March 31, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who'd like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling 1-508-945-4410, conference ID number 312-565-320#, or join the meeting via the link on the town's website. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will provide a post of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. In accordance with town policy, the public can speak to any issue, hearing, or business item on the agenda during the meeting when recognized by the chair. To authorize this form of meeting, we will go through a roll call vote.
Virginia Fenwick approves.
Steve DeBoer approves.
Lee Hovey approves.
Paul C. Semple approves.
David S. Nixon approves.
Ed Acton approves.
David H. Veach approves.
And Randy Potash approves as well. The procedural steps in this hearing are as follows, and this is pursuant to our rules, which are also posted on the town website. We do a roll call of all board members. We ask if any citizens or non-board members participating in the call that they give their last 4 digits of their phone number for identification purposes. The hearing notice is read by staff. Sarah Clark on my right. You or your representative presents the appeal or application. Anyone in favor of the appeal or application may speak. There's a 5-minute time limit. And then I will read the letters received by the board, if there are any. Anyone against the appeal or application or has a specific question will have an opportunity to do that. Applicant may rebut testimony. Board members may direct questions to anyone present. The board hears any further information, closes the public hearing, deliberates, and sometimes votes, usually votes, but not every single time. All votes are taken by roll call, and at the end of the meeting, we will close it with a verbal confirmation and note the time of adjournment. Voting today will be Virginia Fenwick, Paul Semple, David Nixon, and David Veach, and myself. Except for one of the applications, there'll be a recusal. At that point, Ed Acton will be voting. And with that, let's see. We don't have any minutes today, so Sarah, whenever you're ready. First application.
Application number 24-050, Barcliff Properties LLC, care of Rick Howard, 405 Queen Anne Road, Harwich, Mass. 02645. Owner of property located at 172 Barcliff Avenue, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 15G, Block 23, Lot K1. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a nonconforming dwelling on a nonconforming lot via the demolition of the existing detached garage, installation of a new foundation, and construction of additions. The existing dwelling is nonconforming in that it is located 19.4 feet from Barcliff Avenue and 24.1 feet from Mousehole Lane. The existing garage is nonconforming in that it is located 31.4 feet from Mousehole Lane. The proposed addition will be nonconforming in that it will be located 23.8 feet from Mousehole Lane, where a 40-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 2,050 square feet, and the proposed building coverage is 2,469 square feet, where 3,000 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot is nonconforming in that it contains 27,354 square feet, where 40,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Good afternoon, Attorney Norcross.
Good afternoon, Jamie Norcross representing Martin McDonald, who is the owner of the property. I am here today asking for a continuance. We are trying to work out some issues with the neighbors who have concerns relative to the project. I came into this somewhat late, and Attorney Litchfield has just been retained by the neighbors, and I think we're hopeful between the two of us we might be able to work out a resolution that'll be acceptable to all parties. And speaking to Sarah, I understand it'd be August 8th would be the next, August 9th, I guess, would be the next, 8th would be the next available date. So at the board's permission, we would ask for a continuance until that date. Should give us plenty of time to do any revisions if there need to be to plans.
That sounds like a good idea. Does anybody have any comments or discussion, or should we just go with a motion from Paul?
I'll move to grant the requested continuance to August 8th, 2024.
Dave Veach seconds, and votes yes.
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
And Paul?
Yes.
As do I. It's
Great.
unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And our next application is going to be out of the order that was advertised. However, we just felt like it was important to get this one done first. And it will be 24-054.
Application number 24-054, Kennard Family Realty Trust, care of Spencer Kennard, 49 Gillis Road, South Chatham, Mass. 02659. Owner of property located at 49 Gillis Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 4C, Block 13, Lot CG1. The applicant proposes to change, alter, or expand a nonconforming dwelling on a nonconforming lot via the construction of a deck. The existing dwelling is nonconforming in that it is located within the 50-foot buffer to the Coastal Conservancy District, top of bank. The proposed deck will be nonconforming in that it will be located within the Coastal Conservancy District where a 50-foot setback is required. The lot is nonconforming in that it contains 16,769 square feet of buildable upland where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protective bylaw.
Mr. Kennard, I presume.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Spencer Kennard. I'm here with my wife Elizabeth. We live at 49 Gillis Road, South Chatham, and we would like to put a deck on our family home that was built in the 1950s. We understand that our house is on a pre-existing non-conforming lot. Sorry about that. The deck site plans are from 2023 and show it as a wraparound deck connected from the front of our porch, street side, to the back of it facing the Mill Creek Marsh. The back is 12 feet outward and 18 feet wide. That becomes 6 feet wide running the length of the porch. The deck side is approximately 485 square feet. The impact on the neighborhood is minimal. Our neighbors are in favor of our project. The Conservation Commission has given us their approval with provisions on mitigation and landscaping, which we will abide by. I have addressed, and I'm sure you have copies of the applicable criteria, and we can discuss them as you wish. We try to be good stewards to our surroundings, as this is our home passed on to us, and we will pass on to our children. Elizabeth and I hope you will support this project.
Oh, thank you very much, and we did receive your criteria as written, and all the reasons why you feel it meets the criteria. We appreciate that. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this project? Please let us know. Seeing none, I have 7 letters to read, and I will, 6. So the first one is from Judith Giorgio, our health agent, who has no concerns regarding the construction of the deck at this property as proposed, written on May 29th, 2024. Then we have a note from the Conservation Commission, May 9th, 2024. The applicant submitted a request for determination on April 13th and was issued a -3 determination. The project as approved meets the performance standards of the Wetlands Protection Act and all the wetland chapters of Mass General Law as promulgated therein. Then we have a letter from Edwin McCausland on May 30th, 2024. We are abutters to the Kennards and strongly support their application to add to the proposed deck. They have been great stewards of the environment in the location. It'll only enhance the use and enjoyment of the property, and they live at 154 Mill Creek Road in South Chatham. Then we have a note from Christopher and Margaret Walker of 31 Gillis Road from October 18th, 2023. We write in support of the application. We believe, based on the description of the application, that we are the northeasterly abutter located at 31 Gillis. From our perspective, the construction of the deck will have no negative impact on our enjoyment of our home and property. To the contrary, we believe the new deck will improve the overall quality of the surrounding of the neighborhood, and we urge the town to approve the application. Thanks for the opportunity to provide input. Then we have a note from Thomas Gillis on 5/17/2024 in regards to the application 24-054 that Spencer Kennard and is requesting to be allowed to add steps and a porch to his home on Gillis Road. I have no objection to this. Mr. Kennard has been a neighbor for over 20 years, has always kept up his property, and has been a very good addition to Gillis Road. As you can see by the name, this was my father who brought the land almost 100 years ago that is now known as Gillis Road, so I am very familiar with that, with what goes on there. And we have a note from Jack Gillis from May 14th, 2024. As an immediate butter to both sides of the property located at 49 Gillis Road, I wholeheartedly support the application. Spencer and Elizabeth Kennard have designed a deck that is both in keeping with the locale and has very little, if any, impact to the flora and fauna. Okay, he's at 198 and 184 Mill Creek Road. And that concludes the correspondence. Is there anyone here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? Please make it known. Seeing none. Questions from the board? Dave Veach.
I have no questions.
Ed.
No questions.
Dave.
I have none.
Jen.
No questions.
Steve.
I have no questions.
No questions.
I do have a question. What do you plan to do between the posts on the deck? You're going to run wires there, glass? What's the?
If I can, on the very front part, the 12-foot part, I'm sorry, the 18-foot part that goes out, would do wire. The rest would be wooden posts. So, but depending on the cost, it may all be wood.
Okay, thank you.
So my question is, what's a fauna, if, you know? Fauna? Was that a typo or,
No, no.
no?
I didn't,
It's like vegetation, okay, thank you.
Vegetation.
All right, very good, very good. Sounds like a good project, and Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
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 All votes yes.
As do I. So deliberations, Paul?
Well, I had a nice conversation with Elizabeth, Mrs. Kennard, when I was out there. I got to see the orchard, which looks very nice. I heard about the bus trips back in the day with Barbara Cajon, starting way over on the other side of Chatham. But all of that is probably irrelevant to this. What is relevant is that this certainly is a nice project. It's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, and I will vote in favor of it.
And Lee?
I agree with Paul. I think it's going to be a great project and a nice improvement.
thank you.
Steve, deliberations?
The same as everyone else has said.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice project.
And Jenny?
I agree with my colleagues. Very nice project.
Dave Veach?
As do I. It's a nice project, and we'll support it.
And Ed?
Yeah, I certainly support it, as do my colleagues.
And Dave Nixon, deliberations.
It meets all our criteria.
Very good. Paul?
I'll move to approve the application as submitted. When do you plan to do the construction?
Well, I think I have to wait for building permit. I think there's a waiting period between this approval and in case anybody objects or whatever down the road. I'm not sure if that's true, but hopefully this summer. I mean,
Okay. Well, you've got a fairly narrow location there in terms of the road going by the property in the top there. Are you able to keep construction vehicles off-site or on neighboring property with permission?
yes.
Okay. I think probably the only condition I would suggest is that all construction activity and vehicles be contained on-site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner.
Does everybody agree with that? Anybody have anything to add? No? Okay, then,
I'll move approval on that basis.
Yeah, Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Dave Nixon,
I vote yes.
Ginny,
Yes.
Paul,
All votes yes.
as do I. It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, moving along. Now, this next one is Stage Island Realty Trust, and,
Madam Chair, I would like to recuse myself because I am in a butter to the cottage I own just down the street.
okay, do you feel like you need to leave the room? Or?
No, I
No,
don't.
okay, very good. Do you want to participate in deliberation?
No,
none of
no.
that. All right, very good. So whenever you're ready, Sarah, 24-05, no, I'm sorry, yeah, 24-051.
Application number 24-051, Stage Island Realty Trust, care of William G. Litchfield Esquire, 330 Orleans Road, North Chatham, Mass. 02650. Owner of property located at 230 Stage Island Road, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 13A1, Block 5, Lot D27. The applicant seeks a special permit to allow for a deck which was reconstructed to be located 19 feet from the Coastal Conservancy District where a 50-foot setback is required, and the installation of an exterior mechanical system appliance generator 17.5 feet from the northerly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. In the alternative, the applicant seeks to modify special permit number 22-064 granted on August 11, 2022, to allow for the modifications listed above. The property is located in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Sections 6 and 14, and Sections 5B and 8D2B of the protected bylaw.
Attorney Litchfield, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Bill Litchfield here on behalf of Deborah and Peter Nelson, who as trustees own the house at 230 Stage Island Road. You may remember that we were before you 2 years ago for some fairly small modifications, some additional living space on the lower level, and some other changes, including a deck on the rear. When the Nelsons went forward with their project, thank you, and that's the original and reconstructed deck. It might actually be useful, Sarah, if you'd bring up that small one that I sent to you, because we're really seeking only a modification. It's a very minor thing. As shown there on the left-hand side, there is a proposal now to add a generator to two existing and legally pre-existing non-conforming air conditioning condensers that have been there since before the 2012 bylaw change. When the Nelsons decided that they wanted to have a generator, which frankly they didn't think about when they came before you 2 years ago, they realized that to assuage the concerns of conservation, they'd have to reduce some coverage. Conservation has a different definition of coverage from that which this board has. Anything within conservation's jurisdiction is coverage. So in order to get room for the generator, they needed to reconfigure the deck. So they cut off 80-odd square feet on the lower left side of that picture, and they squared off the deck at the very bottom of it for net reduction to allow for the generator. They went to conservation, got that approved, and they realized that they had made a mistake, that they didn't come to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we apologize for that. At the time that happened, which was almost a year ago, they did talk to the building department. They advised them that an error had been made. The building department appropriately said, come in front of you. There were some delays in getting here, not through the fault of the Nelsons, but plans and so forth. But we are now here seeking, as you prefer, either a modification of that which was granted in 2022, which was appeal number 22064, or a new special permit 24-051. But the sum changes are the squared off portion of the deck, the reduced portion of the deck to the left of that, which we've eliminated, and the addition of the generator. So I'll go through the criteria as I assume you would like me to do, but I will try to be brief in light of the simplicity of the project. We currently have nonconformities, as read by Sarah, which are by no means unique to this neighborhood. The site, I think you can find, remains adequate for the modified deck and placement of the generator adjacent to the existing compressors. There's no change in coverage, living area, gross floor area, and a minimal change in proximity to the Coastal Conservancy District by virtue of the angle of the line of the top of the coastal bank. As to compatibility of the size, I did include the third page. The comparison of sizes, but it really isn't relevant. There's no change in the size of the house, and the deck itself is actually minimally smaller than that previously approved. As to the extent of increase in nonconformity, as I indicated, squaring off of the deck results in a slight increase in proximity to the top of the coastal bank, but again, conservation has already approved it. The generator, of course, is to be adjacent to the existing air conditioning compressors. As to suitability of site, it's already been reviewed and approved by the Conservation Commission. There will be native vegetation, excuse me, to surround the generator, and there's extensive mitigation already required. The chair will later read a letter from the Conservation Commission staff, which is actually in error. It says that we have not yet filed. The last page of your handout is a copy of a letter from the Conservation Administrator acknowledging what they refer to as a field change, and they've already approved it. So that's been taken care of. As scale, sighting mass, and views and vistas, there's no impact on the scale or the streetscape from the squared off but smaller deck in the rear, and none from the generator, although the abutter who is closest to it has written in support of it. No change in compatibility of use, water, sewer, traffic flow, safety. So the issue is whether the proposed modification and slight reduction of the deck and the addition of the emergency generator are substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the current non-conforming structure and a non-conforming lot, aspects, of course, which apply to almost every house in the neighborhood, cottage in the neighborhood. Failure to include the generator in the initial request was an error. It was inadvertent, rather, and adding it necessitated, as I explained, the reconfiguration of the deck to reduce coverage within the NDZ. That change was approved by Conservation, and it was a genuinely innocent oversight, not coming back to you until now. We apologize for that, but we still seek your support. There's no change in coverage of the size of the house itself. None of the aspects today are visible from the street, and again, Conservation has already approved it. So based on the criteria and the plans, I think that you can find the proposed changes are not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Be happy to answer any questions.
Oh, thank you. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Please make it known. Seeing none, I will read the correspondence. There are just a couple. The first one was from our health agent on May 29th, who says she has no problem with the construction at this property, and that's Judith Giorgio. Then we have the updated, although it was from 10/12/2023, letter from Conservation. Maybe, I don't know why it's 10/12/2023.
I have no
And it's
idea.
updated, but in any event, Conservation has, let's see, the field changes were approved on 10/12/2023. Field change request, letter dated 9/18/2023. Proposed changes were stamped on 6/4/2023. Additional conditions, native plantings shall be planted around the generator. And that's from Paul Whiteman. Are you satisfied with that?
No, I am satisfied with that. That's actually what I handed out. There had been a letter in the file dated May 9 saying that we hadn't applied, but we'd already been approved.
I'm not going to read that one. Okay. I'm going to ignore that one. All right, so on October 6, 2023, we got a letter from Kathleen and Edward Scopas, the owners of the adjacent property at 214 Stage Island Road, wrote to support the modification request for the special permit previously approved for the renovations of Peter and Debbie Nelson's home at 230 Stage Island Road. We understand the Nelsons have requested a modification to place a generator adjacent to the location where the AC compressors are located. We understand and support the need to place the generator at this location and respectfully request that the Board of Appeals approve the modification. And that concludes the correspondence. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? Seeing none. Questions from the board? Ginny?
I have no questions.
Just going to go right down the,
Steve has no questions.
No questions.
No questions.
No questions.
And I have no questions.
and nor do I. Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Ed?
Ed Acton votes yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Paul?
All votes yes.
As do I. Okay, deliberations. Ginny?
Mr. Litchfield did a nice job with your summary, and I had an opportunity to speak to Mr. Nelson when I did the site visit. I think it meets all of our criteria, and I would support it.
Thank you.
And Steve, what do you think?
You know, I'm glad to see you righting the wrong and documenting what was done. So I have no other issues.
And Lee?
Agree with my colleagues.
Paul?
Certainly not more substantially detrimental.
Ed?
Yes, I agree, and the neighbor that's most effective is pledged his support, so no issues here.
Dave Veach?
Yeah, I agree with all previous.
And the Mrs. Nelson actually showed me around and explained everything perfectly, so that really made life easy. And at this point, Paul?
I'll move to approve the application as submitted. I don't see a need for conditions.
And David seconds. Question, are we approving this as a separate special permit or a modification to?
What is it, does anybody want to comment on that? What do you think, Ginny?
I think it was written as a separate,
I defer to Sarah. So
So it was advertised as a new special permit, but in the alternative, you could always modify the existing special permit. It's basically the same thing.
What would you like us to do, Counsel?
whatever is easier for Sarah, because she has to type it.
All right, so,
I would do it as a new special permit.
okay, done.
I will move to approve the application as submitted on 24-051.
David seconds
And votes.
and votes yes.
And Ed?
Ed Acton votes yes.
Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
Paul?
All vote yes.
As do I. It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Let's see. Next, we have application 23-052, 739 Kroll Road. And whenever Sarah's ready, she will read that advertisement.
Application number 24-052, GHW Realty Trust, care of James M. Norcross Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owners of property located at 739 Kroll Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map, 12I Block 6, Lot 1A. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a nonconforming dwelling on a nonconforming lot via the demolition of the existing dwelling and detached barn and the construction of a new dwelling and detached accessory structure. The existing dwelling is nonconforming and that it is located 23.9 feet from the road where a 40-foot setback is required, and 20 feet from the northerly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. The existing barn is nonconforming and that it is located 19.4 feet from the southerly abutter. The proposed dwelling will conform to road and abutter setback requirements. The proposed accessory structure will be nonconforming and that it will be located 20 feet from the southerly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 2,942 square feet, and the proposed building coverage is 3,119 square feet, where 2,850 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot is nonconforming in that it contains 123.04 feet of frontage where 150 feet is required, and contains 43,539 square feet where 60,000 square feet is required in the R60 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Chatham Protected Bylaw.
Mr. Norcross and Company, welcome.
Good afternoon, Jamie Norcross representing Damon Wartanen. Damon is here today in the audience in the blue shirt. Helping on our presentation today is Sally Dagon, the architect for the project, and Thad Eldridge. In preparing for the hearing this week, I saw that we were here way back in September, believe it or not, which time flies, I guess, when you're having fun. But and so we were here with a much different proposal back in September. At that time, the proposal was essentially taking there's two buildings on the existing property. You have the main house and there's a detached barn. And the idea at that time was basically to take the square footage from the two structures, combine it into one structure that was going to be sited essentially in the middle of the lot. It was going to run from one sideline setback, it's right there in all its glory, and it was going to run from one sideline setback to the other sideline setback, and it was going to be a gambrel design. And I guess it goes without saying it was not very well received by this board, and so we withdrew without prejudice. And some of the concerns that were mentioned by the board, concerns and criticisms, I guess I would say at that time, were the mass of what we were proposing at that point, specifically the height. That proposal had a building height of 29.8 feet, so essentially call it 30 feet, was a concern raised by the members. And the architectural style, the gambrel that you see. Members expressed their opinion that that style is not really compatible with this neighborhood. And so toward the end of the hearing, as Damon and I were licking our wounds from all this, there was a little bit of back and forth with members about some suggestions that folks had about certain design characteristics that we could take back on our redesign in terms of trying to come up with something that perhaps would be viewed more favorably by this board. And one of the aspects that I've talked about with Damon quite a bit since that was the idea of it's an art versus a science, right? And by science, I mean, previously we designed for a box, and we met the setbacks, we met the height, we met the building coverage. And so that's the science. We could do that. But there's more of an art form to it, I think, is what the board expressed. And you needed to look at a more thoughtful approach in terms of coming up with a design that is more appropriate for the property and more appropriate for the neighborhood. One of the aspects that was discussed by board members was, well, there's two buildings now. Is there a way to incorporate two structures into your new design, as that might reduce the impact of any massing? And lastly, one of the topics discussed was, because we were touting to the board, hey, we're meeting the setbacks, we're meeting the coverage. And some of the comments were, well, maybe you're better off spreading out a little bit more, and that would help reduce the mass, as opposed to trying to condense it into one space, which actually has more of a negative impact in this particular case than spreading out what you're trying to build on the property. And so Sally and Damon have spent a lot of time doing a complete reset, as you can see from the plans today. And Sally's been, and she's going to explain her process to you shortly, because she's going to be much more eloquent in describing it than I will be. But coming to the property, visiting the neighborhood, really canvassing the area to get an understanding of what she could do with a design that would be appropriate for this property and appropriate for the neighborhood. And again, while we're trying to take a more thoughtful, artistic approach, a couple numbers that I would like to express to you before I turn it over to Sally that I think is important. As I mentioned, the prior design, the building height was 29.8 feet, so call it 30 feet. This design, the main house that we propose is 27.6. The barn, the second structure, is 27.2. So it's an over 2-foot reduction in what we previously proposed to you back in September. And it's 2 feet, and it's also a design utilizing dormers as opposed to a full 2-story gambrel. So I think that 2 feet is an even greater reduction visually, because we're using the dormers to create the living space on the second floor as opposed to the gambrel style that folks, told us was really not appropriate for this neighborhood based on that hearing. In terms of setbacks from Crowell Road, the existing structure is set back 24 feet from Crowell Road. The proposed, the very front section is going to be set back 42.5 feet. So that's about 17 feet further back from Crowell Road than the existing structure. I would also point out the garage that you see there on the very top of the THAD site plan, that's going to be set back over 88 feet from Crowell Road. And the barn, which is at the very bottom of THAD site plan, is going to be set back over 90 feet from Crowell Road. So in addition to reducing the height, we've also pushed a majority or a large portion of the structure significantly further back than the prior proposal back in September as a way to alleviate any concerns relative to massing. So with that, I'd ask Sally to please run through her design and her process, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Hi, thank you. And I'm not sure I will be as eloquent as you were, but I will say that I've been working with Damon for years and years on other projects, and I appreciated your feedback on the first one because it was not my favorite either for this property and for this area. So I welcomed the chance to propose a structure that I thought was much more in keeping with some of the homes in the neighborhood. And I'll say neighborhood because what we did in that first sort of neighborhood study, you had it up with some photos, was look at the houses that were in existence when this house was built. So not really focusing on the smaller capes or ranches, but some of the older homes. And what I'll say I take from these is that, they're 1.5 story, there are some 2 stories. They look like they've been added onto over time. They've grown with the families who live there. And that's kind of the feel we wanted from this new design. And for that matter, I appreciated the existing house, which is kind of a house, a little connection, and what might have been the original barn in the back, the garage. So we tried to kind of repeat that. We have a house. Now, instead of just a gable house, we have a gable facing, a crossing gable, but it's 1.5 stories. It's got a little connection that crawls along back to a barn that's almost the identical scale and size and proportion of the garage that was there. So we've really tried to keep kind of the original flavor of this house as much as we could, with bringing it up to more modern size and needs and functions. The other thing that's important to us when we design is just the scale and proportion of each element. So we spend a lot of time making sure that the width of the house, the height of the house, the pitch of the roof works well. And so there are a lot of little, smaller elements instead of the larger gambrel one motion. And I think the thing that we really enjoy is it feels like a house that may have been there at the turn of the century and grew over the years. We even did things like changing up the window pattern. The muntins on the back portion of the house are 2/2, a little more a later period than the front of the house. So you get this feeling that it had been growing. And so for me, the exact nuts and bolts of the size, the square footage, the distances, et cetera, aren't as important as how does the overall package feel? Does it feel like it had been there for years? And we feel like we've done that this time around. So I look forward to your thoughts and reactions.
Thank you.
Do you want to run through the 3D model?
Oh, that would be great.
If we could, Sarah, bring up we have a 3D model that Sally and Thad prepared.
And this is taken from a perspective more like as you're a human. Now he's a bird. And you can see how there are multiple pieces to the house, as if it had been added on to over the years. And the detached, whatever we want to call that detached building is reduced in size from the original. Here's where the rear, because of the walkout, does feel, taller than the front of the house, but very few neighbors, hardly seen at that end of that side of the house.
Get dizzy.
The only thing missing was the popcorn.
Well, Thad is a real wizard with that technology, so it's something else to watch. Moving along, anything else, Sally? or-
No,
Okay, so I'll just jump into the criteria.
If I could just interrupt you for 1 second.
Sure.
I forgot to note at the beginning, if anyone has their cell phone on at all, please shut them off. And if you have a hat on, please take that off in the building. Thank you. Go ahead.
Number one, adequacy of the site in terms of size for the proposed use. We believe the size of the site is adequate for the proposal. The main house will meet all dimensional setbacks and will be set back over 15 feet further from Crowell Road, and that's the very front of the house, from the existing house. The barn will remain non-conforming to the south setback. It's just over 19 feet now. It'll be set back 20 feet from that lot line, but as Sally mentioned, the size of that building is decreasing, and the condition of that building will certainly be improving. And then the overall building coverage, while it is a bigger building, in terms of building coverage, we're only increasing by a total of 177 square feet between the two structures. Number two, compatibility of the size of the proposed structure with neighboring properties. The home is in a neighborhood of, as Sally mentioned, it's a mixture of sizes and style within several historic homes, probably 4 or 5 that she found, some that I didn't even know existed until I was reading her package that sort of hidden back behind vegetation, and a number of homes that were built in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. The home is larger than the homes in the immediate neighborhood, but I did I guess I call it a more expansive view of surrounding areas and found that there are homes that are comparable in size. And they don't have a Crowell Road address, but they're actually quite close to this property, and that is on the gross floor area analysis that I provided at the end of the zoning analysis today. The additional size of the proposed structure, I'd suggest, is mitigated by the fact that the front part of the structure will largely block the rear portion as seen from Crowell Road. The setbacks that we mentioned, the fact that it has staggered setbacks as well, I think mitigates the additional massing with 40 feet to the front, and then you have over 88 feet to the garage section and over 90 feet to the barn. Number three, extent of proposed increase in nonconforming nature of the structural use. The only nonconformity that we are increasing is building coverage, which again is going up by only a total of 177 square feet. Suitability of the site, including but not limited to impact on neighboring properties or the natural environment. Again, we believe the site is suitable for the demolition and rebuild. There will be no negative impact on neighboring properties or the environment caused by the proposed construction. And the project will clean up what has become a deteriorated site that is in need of significant work in several areas. Number five, impact of scale, siting, and mass on neighborhood visual character. I do not believe the project will have a negative impact on neighborhood visual character. The goal of the design, as Sally mentioned, is to replicate the rambling nature of the existing structure and have several historic homes in the neighborhood that were built around the same time frame. It's a traditional design that incorporates dormers to create additional area on the second level while maintaining a building height that is 2.5 feet below the 30-foot maximum. Again, as I mentioned a couple times, the massing is further reduced by the fact that it's being set back so far from Crowell Road. As Sally mentioned, the structure will look largest as viewed from the back of the property, but that area is largely hidden from view and certainly does not impact the streetscape as viewed from Crowell Road. It's sort of part of it is a byproduct of the topography. Anything you're going to build up on this property, because it slopes so significantly into the back, is likely going to have a walkout basement. So it's going to look bigger on the back no matter what you build. Obviously, ours looks, significantly bigger from the back than the front, but I don't think it's impacting the neighborhood as a whole, and certainly not impacting the streetscape at all, since it can't be seen from view. Number six, it's a residential use in a residential neighborhood, and therefore we're compatible. Number seven, method of sewage disposal, source of water, and drainage. We have adequate source of water. There will be no issues with drainage, and as mentioned in the letter from Judy Giorgio that you'll read, we are proposing a new IA septic system to be installed as part of the project. No impact on traffic flow and safety, no issues with noise and litter. We have adequate utilities. It is not a formula business, and we are not in the floodplain. So just briefly to conclude, again, I think it's significantly different from what we proposed before. We hope you view it as a significant improvement. We certainly think it is, and we do not think it is at all substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, and are happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this project? If so, please make it known. Seeing none, I will read the correspondence. There are three. First, from our health agent, Judith Giorgio, on May 29, 2024. She reviewed the plan to demolish the existing dwelling and rebuild a new dwelling The Board of Health has approved the construction of a 5-bedroom dwelling at this property as proposed with the use of an IA septic system. The property will be deed restricted to 5 bedrooms. Next, we have a note from the Conservation Commission on, let's see, May 29th, 2024, from Christina Bassett, the Chatham this is from the Historical Commission, they reviewed the application for 739 Crowell Road in June of 2023. They continued the matter to July of 2023 and ended up imposing a 1-month demolition delay that expired on August 17th, 23. The commission imposed the delay because they thought that the new design did not fit in with the neighborhood and hoped they would reconsider it. Next, we have a note from the Patton family at 725 Crowell Road, May 29th, 2024, to the members of the Town of Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals. We have been proud Chatham homeowners since November 2016, when we purchased the house at 725 Crowell Road. We purchased the home originally for seasonal use with our children, now use it year-round regularly and discuss retiring in Chatham. We have just completed a significant renovation to our home, including a complete renovation to the kitchen and the creation of a primary bedroom suite to suit a retirement lifestyle. We greatly enjoy our home in the neighborhood, and we use the home for our personal benefit. We do not rent it out. The neighboring property at 739 Crowell Road has been lying vacant since at least the time of our purchase. Originally, 739 included a small historic home and barn that have fallen into abject disrepair. We have despondently watched both the home and barn fall apart literally from our deck in our kitchen, bathroom, bedroom windows. Unlike the house, the barn had been used as a garage for storage and not for habitation. Initially, we were thrilled to learn the property had been purchased and that the owners were planning to build a home that would bring both new neighbors and value to the neighborhood. However, you can imagine our concern when we learned that developers have proposed to retrofit the existing decrepit barn into a separate domicile that could easily accommodate large parties for summer renters. The barn currently sits only yards away from our master bedroom and back deck, where we spend our mornings, afternoons, and nights. The developers are proposing to convert the barn into a 3-floor intrusive structure that could easily accommodate a kitchen and additional bedrooms after ZBA approval for rental purposes. As the submitted plans and number of bathrooms suggest, we can anticipate renters engaging in boisterous activities in this new dwelling well into the night, which is out of keeping with our neighborhood. We do not oppose the construction on the main house. We have loved the serenity and charm of Chatham in our neighborhood, and we'd be happy to share that with others who value those attributes. However, the proposed conversion of the barn into a 3-story guest house looming uncomfortably close over our living areas would greatly affect our Chatham lifestyle and have a significant detrimental effect on the neighborhood as a whole. For those reasons, we strongly oppose the retrofitting of the existing barn at 739 Crowell Road into a separate domicile. Thank you for your consideration. James and Kathleen Patton. Okay. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this project or has a specific question? Yes, sir. Welcome.
Yes, welcome. My name is Peter Farber, and I've been retained by James and Kathleen Patton, who are sitting over on that side of the room, and they wrote the letter that the chair has just read. And as stated, they own the property that abuts the subject property on the south at 725 Crowell Road. And I'm going to be referring to the applicants by the plural, because I did look on the Registry of Deeds. There's 3 owners. They took title as the GHW Realty Trust, or as trustees. The Pattons received notice of today's hearings about 2 weeks ago. They had not been previously contacted by the applicants. My comments regarding the principal dwelling will take less than a minute. As you saw with the wonderful, I guess you call it a drone view, this property, the architect has done quite a wonderful job, in our opinion, in designing a house that is very much the main house in keeping with the neighborhood. We were not aware, I certainly wasn't aware, and I just consulted with the Pattons. They were not aware of any previous application that was commented on earlier. I don't know why, but that's what they say. So the principal residence, as Mr. Norcross has mentioned, has been brought back further from the street, further from the northerly sideline, so that it now complies with the zoning bylaw in those respects. And the applicants are to be commended for that.
I just want to bring to your attention, there's a clock, so if you want to get to the important part.
Okay. Okay. So my client's opposition centers on the reconstruction of the existing barn, which sits 19.4 feet from their property line. As been represented by the applicants, the proposal is to demolish that structure. It certainly is dilapidated and has been left unmaintained for quite a few years, it appears. In the plans that have been filed, they continue to refer to the reconstructed structure, the new structure at that location, as a barn. Now, a barn is actually a defined term in the Chatham zoning bylaw, and it's defined as a structure used or intended to be used for the storage of animals, farm equipment, and other chattel. So this building is, again, shown on the plans that have been submitted, contains a full bath on the lowest level, a half bath on the first floor, and a master bedroom suite on the second floor, which includes another full bath. So I've yet to come across an animal that uses a bathroom, a toilet, a sink, and a shower for its urination, defecation, and to clean up. So this is not a barn. It was a barn at one time, apparently, but what is being proposed is certainly not a barn. It also is not an accessory structure, which is, again, a defined term under the Chatham bylaw in the Schedule of Uses Regulations, which is in Appendix 1. An accessory structure is defined using certain examples, one of which is a barn, a boathouse, a detached garage, a swimming pool, and a tennis court, none of which, of course, are buildings that are used for human habitation. So it's not a barn, it's not an accessory structure. What is it? What is this proposed structure that's going to be 20 feet from their lot line? And I suggest that just employing a little common sense when reviewing the plans is that this is a guest house. It's a house. A guest house is defined separately in the bylaw as a subordinate dwelling unit located on the same lot as the principal one-family dwelling owned and maintained by the owner of the principal dwelling. Now, guest houses are not permitted as a matter of right in any of the residential districts. Several conditions apply to guest houses.
I'm just going to let you know that you have run out of time, but I'm going to use my discretion and let you go for another minute. Would that be all right?
Yes? I'm sorry, you're saying you're going to give me a little?
I'm going to give you an extra 60 seconds.
60 seconds,
Do you want 2 minutes?
please.
Okay.
Okay. A guest house is defined in the bylaw, and it requires a lot that contains 20,000 additional square feet than what the minimum is in the zoning district. This lot does not qualify for a guest house. So that's the first question. Or our point is that a variance would be needed to put a guest house. Now, I expect that the proponent will argue that there's no kitchen proposed in this structure. But there's several rooms, if you look at the plan, that are large enough for a kitchen, and they're labeled hall or whatever on the lower floor, and rec room on the middle floor. And certainly, those rooms are available for anyone to drop in a kitchen at any time. And with 3 bathrooms and a master bedroom suite, obviously, my clients feel this is going to be used as a rental, a separate dwelling unit. Putting aside the question of whether a variance is required, my clients feel that this proposal does not meet the criteria in the bylaw because it affects their neighborhood, their structure, their home, more than in any way else in the neighborhood, and it not in a way that is not substantially more detrimental. As related in their letter, this will hover over their house and the side of the house that they use predominantly and plan to in the future. So my time is probably up.
Very good, yes.
And
but
I thank you
thank
very
you.
much for the additional time.
Thank you for that, and we're going to obviously, we're going to let the applicant have a chance to rebut. But first, I just want to make sure, if there's anybody else here with either a question or wishes to speak against this application, either here or on Microsoft Teams, please make it known. I don't think we have anybody else. So, counsel?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly, again, we use the term barn. I guess we were not correct with that term. We're not trying to hide anything. The plans show exactly what's in the building. It is a accessory structure. You have had a number of these before you. I was here myself. I can't remember the address. It was on Morris Island, but it was a garage with living area above it. And as long as it doesn't have kitchen facilities, it's not considered a guest house. It's considered an accessory structure under the bylaw. And there are a number of these structures that exist in Chatham that have had building permits and special permits issued. So I really don't think the variance argument has any merit in that regard. And to assume that someone's going to put a kitchen in after the fact, I mean, that's I think completely unfair. There's no intent to put a kitchen in. The intent was, again, in trying to be a little bit more creative with the design, is to use a second structure to add some additional living area to the building, to the property. We thought it has a barn there. We're going to try to turn that in. You can call it an accessory structure. You can call it a pool house, whatever you want to call it. But we would have living area there. There could be space for people to come in after using the pool. There'd be a little additional space to entertain, as well as a bedroom, and that was alleviating some of the massing concerns by using 2 structures. We think it's a nice look with 2 structures on the property. I appreciate the concerns relative to noise, because they are the nearest abutter on that side. I would point out we are set back 20 feet, so it's not like it's right next to the property line at all in that regard. And we are proposing significant screening around, Thad could probably provide some information on specific species, but vegetative screening along the entire perimeter of the property, which also would alleviate, I think, some concerns relative to noise that the neighbors have. And again, my client wants to be a good neighbor. He wants to work with folks. This is the first we've heard of these particular concerns. So obviously it was not incorporated into the design, but we don't think, while we appreciate the concerns, we don't think it really will have an impact at the end of the day on their use of the property and enjoyment. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I read the correspondence. Yes. And questions from the board? Dave Each.
I don't know, Thad, I'm looking at your site plan here. Would you get, and maybe the neighbors know, what's the setback? Can we tell the setback from their house to the sideline?
For the record, Thad Eldridge, East Southeast.
Architectural.
Nope. Oh, it's hiding underneath something. So they're about 21 feet from their sideline.
Okay. And the existing barn is 19.8 or something like that?
19 and change, yep.
Yeah, 19 and change. Okay, kind of, in a way, I think we've been given some of the definitions from the bylaw, which Jay were here. There've been a number of terms tossed at us here tonight that I don't think apply, guest house, and I think Jamie refuted that, but domicile, dwelling unit, all kinds of things, and I'm not sure. I think, do you, basically, Jamie, what you've said to us is that those terms do not apply to this, this structure
That's correct.
with respect to the definitions of the bylaw and the plans that have been shown.
Correct. In order
Okay.
for it to be a guest house, it has to have cooking facilities, and that
Right.
this does not and will not have cooking facilities.
Yeah, we've encountered that kind of thing in the past from time to time. Okay, I don't think I have any questions at this point.
Okay.
Thanks, Randy.
Ed Acton, questions?
In regards to the barn or pool house or accessory structure, typically you see it labeled, something like this, we'd see labeled, living space up over a garage, or a pool house would be labeled as a pool house. It seems like the correct label might be pool house with living space.
Yeah, that's probably a more accurate description. You're correct.
I don't have any other questions. Thanks.
Dave Nixon, questions?
I have no questions
No?
at this time,
Okay.
thank you.
Virginia Fenwick, questions?
Well, I had some of the questions that the neighbor brought up. If you look at A5, maybe you can just describe a little bit more, since the neighbor is here and they brought it up, and I had these questions also. What is on the basement floor plan, stair hall? That's a really large space, estimating maybe 20 by 20 or something like that. What is stair hall? What is that space?
It's really just to service the pool, so a changing space. It's, the washer and dryer is down there.
Is that what's in the box? That was a question I had
Yeah,
too.
under the
Okay.
stair.
Okay.
So
And-
honestly, you would almost have to ask Damon what he
Okay.
thinks he'll use that for, but for us, it was really just an accessory to the pool.
Okay. Full bath on that level. Is the front door, I think the rendering is very nice of the arch. I like that. It echoes what's there. But it isn't a door, is it? Or is it a door?
It truly is a door. It's meant to look like an old,
Barn
or
door.
a barn door, but
Yeah.
only the middle section opens.
Okay, so it's a
The two
Regular
side, almost like a door with two side
stationary.
lights.
Okay, okay. And so that's probably what's in the top right-hand corner of A5.
Yes.
So Jamie, I did have a question about building coverage. You are going over on the building coverage from the previous proposal and from what's existing.
Correct.
And what's the reason for that? You couldn't fit it in to?
Well, Sally, do you want to address well, it is going over. I mean, I guess the question is, could you fit it in? I suppose you could. We did discuss in terms of shrinking it back. I think, Sally, you had some comments on the design aspect that would create by sort of shaving a little off here and a little off there in terms of how it would look.
Yeah, so mainly, there are places we could shave. We could shave a little off of the garage, I'll call it, or we could shave a little off the family room. And if you really want to know the honest answer, we get to this point and we draw for so long, and then he says, "Can you make it smaller?" And I say, yes, can we see what they say and we can make it smaller? But it was kind of the end of the line of,
Okay. Yeah. No, thank you for that. I know we did talk, Jamie, at last hearing about breaking up the one structure and, maybe being able to accommodate a little bit more with some of the, but anyway, those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Steve, questions?
I saw on the first floor of the pool that you have a mechanical closet there. Is that a mechanical closet for the pool or for that building itself? What is that? What is that?
That is for that building itself.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if all the pool equipment will also get in there or in another
Okay,
location.
so then where, for the main house then, is there mechanical equipment for the main house, a generator? Or where is all that pool equipment, the filters and everything for the pool gonna be?
I don't know that answer. Do you, Damon, or Thad?
Don't ask the lawyer.
Do we have the laser pointer here?
Yeah.
Oh, is that what this is?
So, Thad Aldridge again, there's adequate space that meets the setback behind the pool house to be able to put generator, air conditioning, pool equipment.
For the main house as well? All the equipment can be back there?
Oh, yes, no, there's a good amount of space.
Okay.
That setback comes back to the end. There is also space behind the garage, but that elevates a bit. That one's.
And I guess if we had a landscape plan, it might be helpful to see what kind of vegetation might screen this property from its neighbors. And I see, what could be, some cedar trees maybe lining the property, but I don't even think you knew for sure what was going to be planted, what was going to be done
No,
for
we
any kind of
immediately
screening.
put in vegetative screening and said to be designed by others. It becomes a choice. Do you want arborvitae versus a western arborvitae that will grow that much faster? Everybody likes the Leland cypresses, which.
Anything that you can do to sort of mitigate the sound that, there's no deck or anything on that auxiliary building, right? So there's nothing coming off the back of
We
that.
were actually given instructions in the beginning, no decks.
Okay.
So only patios.
And I know the applicant's happy to, listen to any comments or thoughts on specific vegetative barrier, because he's certainly wants to make it private for everyone, so.
And the fact that the neighbor was questioning a three-story building, that's really only because of the slope and that's the way it looks from the back of the building?
That's right, that's what we're talking, the rear elevation with the walkout on both buildings really is where you get that.
So from the road, it's a two-story building, it's just that it slopes off so much that it looks like a three-story building from the back?
Correct, yep.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, thank you.
Lee, questions?
Yes, I have a question regarding the siding of the structures. Is it going to be cedar shake?
Yes.
Is it going to be, considering the historic neighborhood and the fact that the home that's there now, even though it's falling down, is considered historic, I'd love to make a request that we don't use the dyed or dipped cedar shakes. We use the traditional. You use the traditional.
Just a natural cedar, white cedar.
That will fade
Fade over time.
like all the other buildings on that street. Well, most of the other buildings on that street.
Yep.
Interesting. Paul, questions?
Just, if you scale out the distance between the residence at 725 Crowell Road and the barn, approximately what distance are we talking about?
I think Thad had 21 feet, and it's 20 feet to our structure, so I'm gonna say 41, but I'll let him use the scale.
So the neighbor structure is closer to the sideline at the street. But if we go directly off their back corner to the proposed, we have about 42 to 43 feet between the two structures.
Okay, that's the only questions I had.
Okay. Dave Nixon, do you have another question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, it's following on the concerns that the neighbors have, and it's sort of the elephant in the room. We've heard some talk about speculative ventures and what happens down the road and so forth, and that really isn't a criteria that we consider. But I do consider what sort of safeguards are built in to protect the neighbor. Now, the neighbors were concerned about noise and so forth because that building is within 20 feet. What sort of assurances can you and your client give them about the future use of that building and also the future dispossession of the property?
If I'm understanding your question correctly, it's not a flip, if that's what you're asking in terms of building it and then selling it. They're building it to use it, to live in it. Again, I think their goal is not to disrupt the neighborhood in terms of any sort of use. And it's not going to be rented out as a separate structure, you know, in terms of they'll stay in the main house and rent this out to somebody. That's not the intent. The intent was to create some additional living area, a place for family, friends to stay. And again, using the idea, as you remember, we didn't want the separate structure to begin with. That was the original design. We wanted one building. But the concerns from the board, which are very valid, and the suggestion was, well, why don't you try to incorporate that second structure? So that's what we did. So it wasn't like we had this scheme in mind all the time that we're going to have a separate structure and rent it out. No, that's not the intent at all. So it's just a way to create some additional living area and not to be a separate rentable building.
Thank you.
Yep. I have two questions. What is a stair hall?
It's a very poorly worded additional room. It's a changing room. It's a laundry room. It's a multifunction room to service the pool. It may end up, that's where they store all the pool furniture at the end of the season. It
Okay.
Really isn't.
And then Sarah's going to put up an elevation, because I have another question. Oh, it's already up. Is there a reason why the dormers don't match on the accessory structure and the house? And just so you know, I really like the plan a lot, very much. And I love dormers. Sir, if you wanted to speak, you have to come up to the mic and identify yourself.
He remembers better than I do. It's the stair was going up there, so the one side has a stair in it, and it functioned better with the single shed dormer than the other side did. So-
Did you think that looked better than having the match, or as an architect?
Well, you know, do I? We actually went back and forth, and
Did
we
you?
tried
Okay.
multiple things. The older I get, the more I appreciate the weird, quirky things that happen in older homes, that it isn't always perfect and not everything is symmetrical. So, yeah, I'm
Okay.
okay with it.
And Virginia Fenwick had another question.
Yeah, I wanted to just follow up on Mr. Nixon's comment about, when I'm looking at the site plan, I see owner of record, and it's 3 people. So how is it going to be someone's home, one person's home? I mean, maybe that's not my business, but it just looks,
Well, they're Damon's best friends, and they're also going to be using the property. Damon's the primary homeowner, but they are
okay.
part of the project, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Greg and Chris, but Damon is the primary owner. They provided some financial backing for the project, and they're going to have some use of it, but it's really going to be David's.
It's going to be your home, okay.
Correct.
All right, when you said, single ownership, that's what,
Sorry, I've basically talked to David exclusively on this,
Yeah,
so
okay.
Sally and I, he's been.
That's fine.
Yeah, whether I use Bank of America or Greg Hedstrom, right,
okay.
financing shouldn't be a part of it, but there has to be some, title to their liquidity piece of it.
Yeah, no, and I agree, the financing is not our concern, but it just struck me when I saw that
Yep.
and
No,
what you said about the intent to
Sure.
homeowner living in the home.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And Steve, you had another question?
Yeah, I just have one more question, and it's a design question, I guess. The shed dormer on the pool building doesn't seem to have a roost or a return at the roof line in the corner. Is that a design feature, or is that a mistake, or something you just left off, or?
No, we were trying to make that building a little more utilitarian, ever so slightly, to give a sense of hierarchy between the buildings. So that was the intent. Similar, well, we didn't do it, not quite similar to the
No,
garage.
that's why I'm asking, because it's two different
Yeah,
treatments there.
yeah. Happy to take
I mean,
recommendations.
you know, it's not a deciding factor, but I think it's a design feature that you might want to look at. Thank you.
Point. Yeah, good point. Does anybody else have a question? It's fine to have as many questions as you need. David Veach, you have another question? You look like you do.
I'm full of questions, I just can't think of what they are. I mean, I'm trying to follow all of this and discussing the various dormers and things, and I can't really follow it completely. I do appreciate the comment about not everything being just so. I think that makes sense. But no, I don't have any other questions, thanks.
Anybody? Going once? All right, Paul.
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Nixon?
Yes.
Jenny?
Yes.
And Paul?
Yes.
As do I. Deliberations. Let's see. Lee?
Well, I would like to say that I really like this design. I really like all of the thought that you've put into it. I like the fact that you've looked at the neighborhood, you've looked at the homes that would have been there when this home was built. I think the height is better. I think it fits in much better to the neighborhood. Traditional, like it's been there, like it's been added onto. I think it was me that suggested you do that, and you use the barn. So I'm pleased with it. I'm pleased with the fact that you've moved it back from the road as well. I'm in favor. I do hear the neighbors. I wouldn't mind a reduction in the building coverage to meet what is there now, or maybe meet the requirement. But overall, I'm happy with it.
Okay.
But my shingle statement stands.
All right. Paul, your thoughts on deliberations?
I think they have listened to what the board suggested with respect to the design and historical suggested. So we've come up with a new design, which really is a right improvement over what was offered initially. And when we did the 3D this time, instead of it torpedoing your design, it actually helped it.
Yeah, I almost got fired after the
Which
last
was
one.
very nice. And I think that the distance from the neighboring property is sufficient to meet the setback requirements and to deal with any noise issues. I agree it's not a barn in the sense of our ordinance, but I think it is an accessory building that could function as such. So I do not think that the new design is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, so I would be voting to support it.
All right, Ed Acton, if you were voting.
Well, I wasn't here for the first meeting, but I did watch that and got a good chuckle. I think this is, I think you heard what everyone said. You responded to the comments. I think Historic would be much happier with this design. I don't know if they've seen it, but I think they'd be, 100%. I agree. I like the way that it looks like it's been added over time. And as far as the accessory structure, it is a little bit further back than the existing barn. If you were to keep an existing barn, what's not to say you could be fixing cars in there or making a bunch of noise in there? I think if your owner is a good neighbor, and I think we put some screening in there, I think it's a good project.
Dave Nixon, deliberations.
Truly, you have listened, and that's heartwarming because that doesn't always happen. And to our new favorite architect of the day, your description of how you came to this, and as Ed just pointed out, of giving us the feeling of a home that had been there maybe from 100 years ago, but going back 250 years. You know, that's just unique, and it's wonderful. And what it is to my eye, it's taking what's left of the current structures and bringing them back to life. It's not just bulldozing it and saying, well, here's a new whatever. As Jamie mentioned, the rendition we had before looked like, I think we thought it was part of it was an addition to CBI or something like that. You know, it wasn't part of Kroll Road, put it that way. But I do hear the concern of the neighbors, and I heard what you said, Jamie, and also your client, about what the use is going to be for that barn. And I just hope that that's how it ends up. I really do. There's nothing we can do about that. But overall, and thank you for the 3D. That always helps us make a decision. Sometimes no, sometimes yes. But thank you very much, and I think Thad had maybe a little bit to do with this.
Certainly did.
Yeah, so give him his props. I certainly will be voting in the affirmative.
All right, thank you. Dave Veach, deliberations?
Yeah, well, I would pretty much echo what's been said. You know, I was very pleased to get these plans, and when I think about, you know, the initial presentation, and you know, I try to be careful to, you know, when it comes to style of houses that are presented to us. I have opinions, but I try to be careful not to weigh too heavily on some. But this was a case where I just felt like the style of what was presented the last time was not a fit for the neighborhood. This is very much a stylistic fit for the neighborhood. Great job in doing that, and a great job with the video. I wish we'd had the popcorn, but I mean that really the setting it in the context was pretty amazing in that regard. You know, I'd also like to thank you for the set of drawings towards the latter part of the packet that showed the outline of the existing buildings, the new buildings against the outline of the existing buildings. That's a great visual aid for us out in the field. In you know, and so thank you for that as well. I think that, you know, these are it's a pre-existing non-conforming building, as is the neighbor's property. They're not seeking to move that building closer to the lot line. I hear the concerns about potential uses of the property. But we hear these things, I mean, about rental and about this and about that, and we hear these kinds of things, but as David said, these are not on our criteria. They can become problems in sites in town. Those are not within our purview, and I don't want to go overboard in trying to respond to potential problems with an individual applicant in a situation like this. I just don't feel that it's correct. Also, you know, I mean, who knows, down the road, you know, the town may be relaxing standards for ADUs even further, and a building like this may come to be desirable as a separate unit someday. I'm not saying that it's the best thing to do, and certainly not the intention now, but you know, we're balancing, the town is trying to balance housing crisis with the zoning bylaw. And so I think that, we have to, some of these things we have to set aside, certainly when we make individual decisions like this one. So I'm very happy to support this. I think they've done a great job of responding to our concerns that we gave. Thanks.
Thank you. Jenny Fenwick.
So Jamie, Sally, and Thad, great job. A really nice presentation, all of you. Thad, I really always find your site plans, the three, the original, the before, the combined, and the after, they're so clear, they're so helpful. Sally, I'm so glad you came today. You were very helpful in walking through. You pointed out really important things. I mean, I liked the design when I went to the to the site visit. But the detail that you pointed out with like the 6/6 windows, you didn't mention it, but I had noticed the small windows, even though they're not the same, they're not 3/3, it's echoing the historic property that's there, which Jamie, you probably recall going back a ways, that was one of the comments that Historic had made at the original, that they wanted leveraging the look and elements. And they didn't mean physical elements, they meant design elements of the existing home. So I do think you've done that. Very nice job of that. The last time you were here, we talked about specifically three things: height, well, we talked about a lot of things, but the height, mass, and historic. And you have addressed all of those. I think the dormers are breaking up the mass, breaking up the building is breaking up the mass. The setbacks have been very thoughtful. I already mentioned the historic, how you brought that in a really excellent job of that, in my view. And then the height, a 2 feet reduction in height is really significant. So I wanted to make all those positive comments. I don't like the barn, though, at least the dormer aspect. And, I mean, I don't know that that's something that you can change or would change, but I do not really like the way that is. It looks a little odd, as was pointed out before. I do hear the neighbor. I had the same thought. I went through the floor plans with respect to the barn. I'm sorry, did I say garage? I meant barn, if I said
You said
garage.
barn.
Barn, okay. So I would like to throw out possibly conditioning the barn accessory structure for no kitchen, no cooking, because it is a really incredible pool house or barn or accessory structure. And you don't have the land, you would need 80,000 square feet to have it be a guest house. And I know one time someone said, when it looks like a guest house and it quacks like a guest house, and it isn't. I understand what you're saying, and members of the board are saying about the fact that it's not a guest house. But if that could be conditioned, maybe that would give the neighbors and others some comfort.
No, that's no problem conditioning. They can't have cooking facilities because we can't have that. It's something we're not allowed anyway. We're happy to put that in writing.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, deliberations.
Well, I'm a little sad to see the old house go. I think maybe if we were having this discussion 10 years ago, we might be talking about restoring it rather than raising it. And maybe that's what Jackson Smith had in mind years ago. But I like what you've done here. Gambrell would not have fit in the neighborhood at all. I think you've done a very good job of trying to make this look like it's been there all along. You've hidden the mass of the house. It's a big house, but you've hidden it from the street, basically. And I think you've done a very good job in that. I think noise to the neighbors, I think the pool is probably going to generate the most amount of noise and not this barn. And the barn might actually do a little to block some of that noise from the neighbors. So, whatever you can do, put a lot of effort into trying to mitigate as much as you can the noise that might be transferring over to the neighbors. If you could do that with landscaping or whatever you can do, I think would be beneficial to everybody. But other than that, I think it's a very good project, and it's a great looking house. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm in favor as well, and just in case the neighbors weren't sure what an ADU is, that would have to be a year-round rental, so it's not come and go. So just in case that law was relaxed and it was an ADU, it would probably be calm there. So, all that being said, Paul,
I'll move to
Randy?
close the hearing.
oh, wait a minute.
Can I just
Excuse
make
me.
one?
Yes, sure.
Just one more comment, just as I thought of this. I would just like to echo what Lee had said in terms of a preference about using, as you had indicated, using white cedar, natural white cedars and letting them weather. It does make, especially on a historic look to a house, makes a big difference. I mean, we're starting to see more and more of the dipped shingles and the this and that, but I mean, clapboard's not weathered but painted and things like that. But the exterior materials can make a big difference in how a house presents itself. So that's just a preference that I wanted to echo as well. Thanks.
Okay, if anybody else has any comments before we close well, actually, the hearing's closed.
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave,
Oh, no, we already did that.
We did that.
Yeah,
I knew that.
you knew that. Voting in terms of a motion.
I'll move to approve the application as submitted with our standard conditions, which is that all construction activity and vehicles will be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. Between June 30th and Labor Day, no exterior construction will be allowed. No work will be permitted on the weekends, and construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only. I'm not sure that we need any condition with respect to cooking facilities, since the bylaw prevents the cooking facilities in this situation anyhow. So I don't see a need to add that as a condition.
It would be redundant through
Right.
that. Does anybody have a problem with not adding that?
I think it'd be better not to be redundant, actually.
Right.
Wait a minute.
I think it would be better not
Not to
being
be
redundant. Yeah, if it's covered, it's been dealt with.
I
For us to lay on top of that, I don't see a need to do that.
No, I don't like that either. What about you, Dave Nixon?
Well, it's possible that in lieu of that, a condition might be that it can't be wired for such a thing, or plumbed for such a thing, as opposed to that, which kind of puts it in a different, just a little different level. And I'd ask Ms. Fenwick if that was a good idea.
I do like that idea.
And who's going to make sure of that?
Well, when it's built.
So as part of the inspection?
Sure.
Is that possible?
It can be. I will say that the electrical inspector, he approves or denies electrical permits based on the fact of whether it is licensed, professional licensed electrical contractor pulling it, not based on a zoning board decision that says you cannot wire for cooking apparatus or whatever. So it could theoretically, after the fact, get wired because he wouldn't necessarily know. The protection of conditioning it is that it would be on the record at the Registry of Deeds, so if the house was ever to sell, in a title search, they would see that there was a condition that this is not a separate dwelling unit under our zoning bylaw.
Oh, well, that sounds like, maybe it's not redundant then. Maybe it's a good idea. to put
It's
it in.
another step.
Yeah, yeah. It's belt and suspenders.
Sure.
So,
And we've done that before. We've
We have
conditioned
done that before.
no cooking. So, yeah, I think that's probably better than the wiring aspect.
that's not going to cause you to withdraw your application, is it?
No, it's fine. I did have Madam Chair, if I may, just happy to have the construction vehicles on site. We have plenty of room. I didn't, wanted to see if there's any thought on reconsidering the time frame in terms of no construction work during the summer. He is hoping to get demolition started sooner than later.
What does
given the-
everybody think of that? Does anybody want to comment on that?
It seems to me that we're already addressing or not addressing neighbors' concerns with respect to noise on the property. I think I'm more inclined to leave it the way it would normally be.
Anybody else want to opine on that?
I agree with Paul.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're really not talking, yes, they could do the demo and everything, but I think it'd be better, it's almost the beginning of June now. I think it would be best to keep the time of exterior construction in there.
Anybody else want to say anything about that?
So I just want to be clear, where did we end up with respect to the discussion on wiring and cooking facilities?
Sarah had the answer.
Yes. So you want to articulate that one more time?
It can just be no cooking facilities shall be installed in the accessory structure.
Perfect.
Okay, and as far as the year-round, I mean, I'm going to take, since we're a quasi-judicial body here, I will take judicial notice that the neighbors almost jumped out of their chair at the idea of summer construction.
Nope.
So
That's fine.
there's that.
Yep, no, that's
So-
all right. We won't, that condition's fine.
Yep, so let's vote. In a second the motion?
I second the motion, and I vote yes.
Dave Nixon?
I vote yes.
Jenny?
I vote yes.
Paul?
I vote yes.
As do I. It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute break, Channel 8. Thank you. Okay, so we're back. Part 2 of the ZBA meeting on May 30th, 2024. And when Sarah's ready, she's going to read the next application.
Application number 24-053, 486 Shore Road LLC, care of William F. Riley Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 486 Shore Road, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 16G, Block 3D, Lot A5. The applicant seeks to construct an elevated stairway and landings under Section 4A3A of the Protective Bylaw. The lot contains 31,950 square feet in R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, and Section 8D2B of the Protective Bylaw.
All right, Mr. Riley, you could move that along.
I'm going as fast as I can.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Remember, just 2 weeks ago, he was the captain of the SS Procrastination. Remember that? Oh, yeah. Captain Billy. I think it's so correct, Stephen Jones. I'll show you about this.
Well, sometimes your advantages of being familiar, and sometimes there aren't.
All right, whenever you're ready, Mr. Riley.
Good afternoon, the Slow Bill Riley, on behalf of Bill Lynn and Mary Murphy. This is a project that you've seen before, 486 Shore Road. You have approved a house which is under construction. And so the second step we have here is that they would like a staircase so they can get down to the water. This is clearly not a place where they're going to go swimming, but for access to the water, for kayaking and boating and enjoying that wonderful asset. And there are many other benefits that come with this, both for the applicants and for the environment. The end result of this project is that the entire bank is going to be have all invasive plants removed and all native species planted. Teresa Sprague is online with us today, and she'll go through it in more detail. But so, as I say, I mean, the reason why we propose these is that the alternative is to bushwhack their way down a hill, to cut a path, to walk up and down on foot, which is very damaging to the bank. That's why, in all the years that I've been doing this, the Conservation Commission has approved every staircase we've ever applied for. And I think that, their guidance is important to you as well. So I think that I'd like to ask Teresa to go through, the planting plan and the benefits that will redound to the property. You have the planting plan, Sarah? So Teresa, are you available?
Hi, yes, Bill. Good afternoon. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flex Design. I'll just briefly go over what we're proposing and how it relates to what we had previously proposed. So the plan that's before you, you see two areas, one shaded in a pink color, and then the other shaded in green. And of course, down at the bottom of the bank, just above the revetment, is an area shaded in tan. The area shaded in pink was the upland area within the buffer zone to the top of Coastal Bank that is currently under the process of being restored. So we removed the invasive vegetation. We're following up. We've stabilized that area with native grass and wildflower seed mix and erosion control blanket. And now as the second phase of this project with the construction of the stairs, we'll be moving further down onto the coastal bank to continue the restoration onto the coastal bank cell. So
Are you breaking up? Teresa, you're breaking up.
Located at the top of coastal bank. Oh, my apologies. I'm on the road, so I apologize. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
You're still breaking up, Teresa.
The what I was saying is that once we were able.
Yeah, you're going in and out, Teresa, so maybe you could stop at one of the inns.
Yes, exactly. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so when we removed the thicket of invasive vegetation from the top of coastal bank and were able to work our way further down onto the coastal bank, we discovered that there was not as much in
Out again.
spot,
Yeah.
and that there's actually quite a bit of healthy native. Oh, darn it. Can you pull over someplace? Sorry.
No, Teresa, let me make a suggestion. I'm going to run through the criteria with the members of the board. Perhaps you can get to a place with a better reception, and you can call back in then, okay?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Riley.
All right, so let me just go through the criteria. So this is a special permit, but it's not like the special permits you deal with when we're dealing with a non-conforming building or use. So this is governed by Section Roman numeral 8 of the zoning bylaw. So the standard for this type of permit is not a question of something that's substantially more detrimental. It's whether the use will not be detrimental to the established or future character of the neighborhood and the town. And you must find that the use involved will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the bylaw. So the specific criteria we have is somewhat similar to our other criteria. It's adequacy of the site in terms of the size of the proposed use. Again, here we have considerable frontage, and our staircase is only 4 feet wide, so the size is adequate. The suitability of the site for the proposed use. We've gone through this a couple of times with the Conservation Commission, and we believe that, although you make your own determination, that you can rely on the fact that they have approved this. We made some changes to our design to meet their approval, but the benefit from their approval is that we go through, the removal of the invasive plants in the area and replant with native species that are better able to protect the bank from erosion, provide habitat for the little critters, and generally, it's an improvement to the property from a conservation point of view. So impact on traffic flow and safety we would think is not applicable. Impact on the neighborhood visual character, including views and vistas, because it's low to the ground, we don't think it really impacts views and vistas. And when we talk to Teresa again, I believe that once the plants mature around the property, it will hide much of the structure, so that I won't have a significant visual impact on the neighborhood. Adequacy of method of sewage disposal, adequacy of utilities, and noise litter, I think, are not applicable. Compatibility of the proposed use with surrounding land uses. This is a waterfront property, and there are a couple of reasons why people buy waterfront property. One is because they like to look at the water, and the other is they like to use the water as a way to enjoy our wonderful town. And so the purpose of this project is to ease access to the water. Impact on the natural environment, including slopes, vegetation, wetlands, groundwater, and water bodies. Again, once we hear from Teresa, which I hope soon, the applicants believe the project will result in a beneficial impact for the natural environment. The vegetation being planted will be an improvement of the existing invasive vegetation in terms of preventing stormwater erosion. And the existence of the steps themselves will protect the vegetation from foot traffic. So I don't know if, Teresa, are you available now?
I am. Is this more clear?
Yes.
Yes, sounds good. Go ahead.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so what I was saying was when we were able to remove the thicket of invasive vegetation located at the top of the coastal bank and work our way down onto the coastal bank itself, we gratefully discovered that there was quite a bit of native vegetation that's very much worth protecting, particularly pitch pines, cherries, and oak trees. So with our proposal to remove the invasive vegetation, we're better protecting those existing native trees, allowing them to provide some screening, as well as keeping the bank stable. And then where we are removing the invasive vegetation, mainly white poplar, bittersweet, and Asiatic bittersweet and honeysuckle, we're infilling that with additional trees, including pitch pines, amelanchier, or berry, and oaks, scrub oaks, as well as a significant number of native shrubs, including beech plum, bayberry, viburnum. And then we're also protecting the area that we're showing in a darker green, which is existing bayberry and beech plum on the bank itself. So that is doing a significant job of protecting and stabilizing this coastal bank. And finally, at the toe of the bank, we are going to be preparing to plant beach grass just above the revetment, as well as some baccharis to help better protect the area just above the low revetment from scarping.
Thank you very much, Teresa.
Okay,
one final comment on the design of the stairs. The bottom section is going to be capable of being removed, particularly in the wintertime, to avoid, creating problems with winter gales. So it's either going to be hinged, so it can be rotated up, or it's going to be removed, disconnected and lifted up onto the remaining stairs, so it'll rest on the stairs itself during the winter time. That'll be our presentation.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this project? If so, please make it known. Seeing none, I will read the one correspondence from the Conservation Commission received on May 9th, 2024. Let's see. The owner of property located at 486 Shore Road, also shown in the Town of Assessors map, map 16G, block 3D, lot A5. The applicant has submitted a notice of intent that was heard by the commission on April 24, 2024, continued to June 5th, 2024, for an order of conditions. The project will be revised to meet the performance standards under the Wetlands Protection Act and regulations. Anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wish to speak against this project or has a specific question? Seeing none. Questions from the board? Steve?
Well, Bill, thank you for, one of my first questions was going to be what was going to be done with the bottom or the lower section of the stairway, and you answered that question, so I appreciate that. Apparently, there's no beach access now, so what were the former owners of this property doing? Were they walking around or just not accessing the beach at all?
That was the O'Coin family, and I guess they simply enjoyed their pool. I'm a boater, so I can't imagine why you would live there and not have access to the water, but they were apparently content with it, so.
What was the criteria that you used to select the location of where this ended up on the beach? Was it because of that revetment? Were you trying to get over the top of that revetment?
Right, well, they wanted to end it, they didn't want to go over the revetment itself. The revetment ends before the property line, so they just brought it down there. That was really it.
Okay. The only other Oh, I guess I don't have any other questions. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Dave Veach, questions?
I don't have any questions.
Ed?
No questions?
Dave Nixon, questions?
Yes, Mr. Riley, you know, I'm a little perplexed here about the need for this, because, as you pointed out, swimming in front is not advisable due to the current and the seals.
Well,
And-
swimming with the seals is fun. I've done that.
Well, there's certain dangers to that, Mr. Riley. Anyway, so boating. Now, the town's just spent millions of dollars to rebuild the fish pier.
Isn't that wonderful? I love the way we support our fishing community. Someday they're going to support the lawyer community that way. But
I really doubt it. I think the shark community comes first. Anyway, and as part of the latest rebuild, there's spots where a private party could pull up and load it up. When I envision that, when I look down the slope that this is going to be built over, I can't see a family loading up with all the paraphernalia and going down that walkway to get to a boat that is in a very strong current.
that's because you're not a boater. So let me tell you how it works.
How about if we let him ask the question?
Well,
and you do
see,
the
because
answer?
he's positing something that would never, ever happen. And so I'll be happy to explain. So you go down the stairs, you get in your skiff or your kayak, you go out to your boat, you bring the boat down into the south jog on the float at the fish pier, and then if anybody's coming, they go out on there and off you go. But, you know, if you don't have people, you just want to go down and get on your boat, I mean, that's how you do it.
But I don't understand why you wouldn't use the facility that's very nearby.
You can, they will, eventually, if they're going to load the boat up, you know, but if the husband and wife just want to go for a boat ride, or the kids just want to go for a boat ride, you go down the stairs, take your skiff or your kayak out to your boat, and go off for a boat ride. I mean, not everybody loads up the boat every time they get on the boat. Some people bring a couple of fishing rods and just go fishing, and a six-pack of beer. But, you know, that's, so I think what you're positing as a potential is that it doesn't happen that way.
That's it for questions? Okay, Paul, questions?
Well, I had the same question that Dave Nixon had. I take it we've had houses there for a long time, both at 486 and coming up at 500, that have not had staircases going down. And I checked, because I saw the staircase at 488, and I was wondering when that was approved. That was approved in 1988. Other than that, there are very few, if any, staircases down that side going to the harbor. And I have some concern about the impact on the view from the harbor onto the town as a result of multiple staircases going down there. I'm not sure it's advisable, given the criteria. So, I guess that's my question.
Well, and Teresa can weigh in on this also. The plantings that are going to be put in around this are going to grow up around it. They do plantings underneath it to stabilize the ground beneath the steps. And I guess I mean, personally, I think your perspective is not that of the property owner. You know, I think that somebody going by in a boat, they might see the stairs or they might not, because the stairs are only 4 feet wide, and it's not like there's a huge scar in the ground that they can see, because we have, a very substantial planting plan that's going to grow up all around it. And so and it's not like a walkway that's flat and goes out over a marsh, because it goes down a bank. And so the growth comes up on the side of the bank and grows up around the staircase. So, but I don't think the criteria should be, well, there haven't been any there until now, and now you want one. Why do you want one? Well, they want to get to the water. And so the reality is that people are going to get to the water, spend a lot of money, they want to get to the water, they want to get on their boat and go out. And so if you don't give them a staircase, then they simply cut a path and go down, walk down the bank. And so I think, and the reason why the Conservation Commission approves these is because it protects the bank. And the planting plan that's part of this is going to provide even greater protection for the bank. As Teresa said, there's a substantial native community there in the bottom third of the bank, but there's also a lot of invasives down there. And so if you leave it alone, ultimately the invasives take over. And so there's no understory, there's nothing protecting the ground underneath, and ultimately you end up with erosion, which we've seen many places here in Chatham, Stage Island, Morris Island, up in Crow's Pond and Riders Cove. These are all areas that all have substantial growth on the bank, but because it's invasive, ultimately it weakens the bank and makes it more susceptible to erosion. So there are a lot of benefits that come with this, and I think the possibility of somebody going by in a boat, you have to think about it. You got Aunt Lydia's Cove there, basically a mooring field. So I suppose if you're getting in your boat in Aunt Lydia's Cove, you'll be able to see the staircase. But if you're going by on your way out to the outer beach, there's no channel close to Turn Island. So the closest boats that are going to be going by are, way across the harbor. So I don't think visually it's a problem. And even if they could see them, I think it's part of the town of Chatham that we have access to the water for our property owners. So, the criteria which I read here, which of course I didn't memorize, whether it's not detrimental to the established or future character of the neighborhood and the town. That's the standard. And I think that this is very much in keeping with the town and how, it's used its properties.
When I looked at the location and the drop-off that's involved there, what you're saying is that this is an alternative to having someone cut their own path down there. Can you legally cut a path through the conservation land?
Well, who said it was going to be legal? People just bushwhack their way, and before you know it, there's a path.
Okay. I have no other questions.
Dave Veach, questions?
There are, I think, I'm just trying to look at but there's more than one staircase along that stretch of bank, is there not, Bill?
I didn't count them. We have one next door. I know that as you go further north, there are other properties that access the water. The bank is not as tall as you go further north, so that
Yeah.
they're smaller structures. But I mean,
I mean, I think I see, I'm just now looking, because, and I walked on this, I think I see, starting at the fish pier and going north, before we get to the property that you're asking for now, there are 2 staircases intervening that I can see now.
I think Ms. Fenwick knows exactly how many
Yeah,
there
so,
are.
Jenny,
Yeah, there are currently 4 staircases.
On that block.
Private property north of the fish pier, 448, 470, which is the southern abutter to 486, and then 520. Those are the 4.
thanks. That's all I had.
Okay.
Yeah, and 520 would have been there a long time, because that property's been in the same family, the Clemens family, for many, many years.
Yeah. All right, Ed Acton, questions?
I think I'm actually in a unique situation here because I live out on Minister's Point. And I actually look over at this property. And you can notice the existing stairs, but they don't really stand out because of the vegetation that grows up, and eventually, they don't really stick out too much. Also, I appreciate that there isn't, sometimes these set of stairs will have a turn with like a viewing area and kayak storage, and this seems to be just a straight shot down just to get to the beach. And it is a very nice area to walk. You can walk over to the fish pier. I can understand why you would want to get down here. And as someone who, because of geography, I think where we are out on Minister's Point, we're the only ones really that are going to really visually see this, other than the 2 cabins that are left out on North Beach. So I understand, wanting to get down to the water. I don't feel it's going to be visually going to be, eventually it's going to blend in. Initially, I think we'll notice it, but I know Blue Flax will do a good job and stabilize the bank, and it'll sort of all blend in. My thoughts.
Questions, Lee?
Yes, question for Teresa, if you're still there. Is she still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Just in general terms, all this mitigation, how long does it take to really fill in and really look, like grown and start to, cover some of these stairs and have it seem blended in?
Yeah, so one of the things I was going to add to the visuals of this is because of the location of the stairs on the north side of the bank, there's a lot of existing native vegetation, particularly trees. The stairs themselves, oh, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Teresa.
Oh, I'm sorry. So there's a significant amount of tree cover over the area of canopy cover. So there's oak and pitch pine located on that north side. You will see that there are 2 red X's on the plans. We do have to remove 1 small scrub oak and 1 small pitch pine for the location of these stairs, but otherwise the areas directly around the stairs are pretty well wooded. That's the most healthy native vegetation, and the way the stairs have been laid out doesn't require any other removal of native vegetation other than those 2 trees that show the red X. And then as we get further down the bank, there's that mature bayberry beach plum plant community. The stairs, the way they're going to be constructed, will be able to go right through that without major disturbance. And then just to the north of that, we will be planting smaller size plants, so 1 to 3 gallon size shrubs. So when they go in, they will be quite small. But the good thing about planting a smaller container sized plant is that the roots become established very quickly. And once their roots are established, we see 2 feet of growth per year on the vegetation. This vegetation will always stay a little bit lower because, of course, it's going to experience wind scour and some pretty extreme weather conditions with hot sun, wind, salt spray, et cetera. But in general, they fill in within 3 to 5 years. It will look as if it won't look like it's been newly planted. For the first couple of years, 3 years, it's going to look like it's newly planted. After that, the plants can take off very quickly. and quickly fill in. The other part of this is when we do the invasive species removal, we'll be seeding this bank with a mix of deep-rooted native grasses, taller grasses such as switchgrass, big blue stem Indian grass that get to be in the 4-foot plus tall range. So those will quickly uncover the areas where the stairs are constructed so that it won't look like there's just a scar down the middle of the bank.
And thank you. And if I'm correct in saying that there's no rock revetment in front of this particular property?
Well,
And do
there's a
you
r-
think that makes it a little bit more vulnerable?
No, there is a rock revetment. If you look at the plan, yeah, there it is. So, whoops. That's the end of the rock revetment. It goes all the way down to the fish pier. As far as we know, it was built by the town years and years ago. So that's, again, that goes all the way to the fish pier.
Okay, thank you.
Virginia Fenwick, questions?
I have a few, Mr. Riley. Let's start with a revetment. So it's existing, town put it in, and it goes down to the fish pier, but it's really like the toe of the bank, right? It's like
That's correct.
3 feet, 2 feet?
I think it's taller than that, but yeah, not much, for sure.
So are you aware of the fact that the southern abutter to 486, who is 470, have applied for an extension to their toe revetment to 15 feet?
No, I'm not.
And you know 520, which is 3 properties down, last year or recently put in 15-foot revetment.
No, I'm not aware of it. I think I'm not familiar with the properties to the south. I think our situation is a little different because we're completely shielded by Turn Island. And there's been no change in this bank for many, many years. I mean, I don't know, again, each individual property is going to have its own dynamics with the waters and the tides and wave strength. But we've had no erosion. And usually when you have a revetment, lots of times you have end scour. That's if the principal direction of sediment drift is along the revetment, and when it reaches the end, it scours out and takes the material in that direction. Apparently,
Yep.
here, the dominant direction of sediment drift is to the south. So we've had no erosion to speak of in this area.
Well, you are exactly right about the revetments, and they really have it. It's a toe revetment. It's very low. And then, of course, their abutting northern neighbor and the next 3 properties do not have a revetment. And several of them wanted revetments. There are arguments from a decade ago, wanting revetments, those properties that didn't have them for protection of the bank. So I'm wondering if you're concerned, or if there is concern about the fact that 3 properties without revetments, even the toe, are going to be sandwiched in between 2 15-foot revetments. You talked yourself about end scour and sediment displacement. That's why they don't like, the town doesn't like revetments unless the house is in imminent danger or you already have one, which is the existing pre-1978. So that's a concern I have on that stretch of the beach.
Well, I think it's a concern that is somewhat misplaced. The dominant direction of sediment drift is presumably to the south because there's no wind scour at this revetment. And any revetments that go in, assuming again that that's the direction south of the sediment drift in this area, usually when somebody's allowed to put in a revetment, there's also a requirement for beach nourishment to replenish the sand that is displaced by the revetment. And so we had a property down in South Chatham where they just put in like 4,000 cubic yards. It's a post-78 house, so they can't have a revetment.
Right.
So that's how they deal with it. But, and this is a post-78 house, so they can't have a revetment either.
Right.
They just happen to be lucky enough to have one in front of them. So, but no, I'm not concerned, and I know the property owner's not concerned.
Okay, well, what they currently have is really low, and their neighbor is going to go quite high.
I know, but, you know, because I don't know if those have been approved or not.
Well,
Here,
five-
you know, let me
Okay.
just finish. So here, you know, you have a tall revetment if you have serious wave action. Here, we have virtually no wave action because of Turn Island. And so that's one reason why there's no, for instance, there's no scarping on our property. Scarp is would be a vertical wall, vertical face, because it's been eroded, but we don't have that. So, you know, we're not concerned about it because it's been this way for decades. And I'm not familiar with any changes. Maybe if Turn Island washes away sometime in the next 50 or 60 years, that might be a problem, but it's not going to be a problem in the near term, being the next 20 or 30 years.
So just to clarify the revetment, 520 has it. It's not an application being approved. It's installed.
Okay.
470 has applied for it and has received approval for it. So I just wanted to clarify that. So I know what you're talking about with the scarping. So the northern neighbor to this property was so concerned in 2018 that, and so I'm talking about 498, their northern abutter, that they had terrible, and they're right next door to the neighbor, your property. And they were afraid they were going to lose their home. That's on a conservation tape. That's just not my opinion.
Yeah, no, I know.
And-
I'm familiar with that case.
And so I bring that up because it's the northern neighbor, and I don't think erosion stops at the property line. Now, I do have a question about mitigation. It's an excellent plan that Teresa has put together. But are you saying that if they don't get the stairs, they're not going to do the mitigation? They'd do the mitigation anyway because of the, like you said,
No,
the
it's-
erosion.
no, it's part of the application. I mean, it costs tens of thousands of dollars to do the mitigation.
At least, I understand that, but
Okay,
I'm
so-
just, just in the way you were phrasing the mitigation plan, it sounded like, you know, because they're doing mitigation, we can build the structure. You know, mitigation and revetments are protecting the bank, and my concern, like Paul's, is the disturbance of the bank to build 172 feet of stairs. That would be my question. I'm moving into deliberations a little bit, I'm sorry, but,
Well, no, we'd rather have you speak of what your concerns are.
yeah.
Even if they aren't questions. And I mean, all I can say is that in my experience working with Teresa, you know, not only are they doing plantings they're doing plantings underneath it so that rain that falls on the steps is not going to create a problem underneath the steps.
Right, I know that.
And
I mean, I
so-
read that.
And so you know, as someone who's worked with Teresa many times, I have no concern personally, you know, of potential for erosion. I mean, there'll be a disturbance when it's built. But, you know, I think that one of the things you're focusing on are not part of the criteria for this, under this section of the bylaw. And so,
I think they are, Mr. Riley, just so you know.
I mean, certainly
They
so.
are, what she's focusing on are part of the criteria for this section of the bylaw.
what
Want me to name
revetments,
it?
what revetments up the coastline?
We're concerned with the impact on natural environment, number
Right.
9. And
Yeah,
that's what she's
no, I
talking to
agree.
you about.
That is, so on this property, we think that ultimately there's going to be an improvement in the natural environment because the mitigation plan is going to increase the stability of this bank. And that they're tied, these are tied together. And so that's why we think this meets the standards of the bylaw.
So they are tied together.
Bill, could I?
Go ahead, Teresa.
Oh, I was going to say, I just wanted to add one thing. One of the things that we discussed when we were going through the initial conservation application for the house construction was whether or not this bank acts as a sediment source. And because there's a revetment, generally when there's a revetment, the bank does not act as a sediment source. But because this revetment is fairly low, there is some erosion just above the revetment, and that is providing sand to the beach. So it's helping keep the beach elevation high. In this particular case, there is also a fiber roll array that was installed on the property to the north that does extend somewhat onto this property. It's the area that's shown in the hatch on the plan in front of you. So the stairs will go over that existing fiber roll array. That area has been covered with sand. It's planted. Fiber rolls are required to stay covered with sand. The stairs are constructed all the time over fiber rolls arrays, so I have no concern about these stairs being constructed with that fiber roll array in place. But there is some protection on that area just to the north where the stone revetment ends and it extends to the north. The only concern I had when these stairs were originally designed was that the original design showed the stairs coming just beyond the toe of the bank and did not include removable steps. That plan has since been revised and re-engineered so that those bottom stairs are removable. That would be my main concern for damage at the toe of the bank in a storm event. So since those steps at the bottom are being removed, I'm not as concerned about the stairs causing any significant damage or erosion on the bank itself. I'm also not concerned about runoff coming from the top of the bank down and causing any kind of erosion because the vegetation on that north side that's existing, that's native, it is healthy, it's intact, and then the proposed vegetation that we're going to be planting around the stairs will further protect that from erosion coming from the upland portion down onto the coastal bank. Again, with the revetments and potential for scarping on either side, and there's no way anybody can predict the future. But I don't think these stairs are going to cause any additional erosion issues, particularly since they've been re-engineered so that those bottom steps are removable and they're ending right at the toe of the bank. Thanks.
Teresa, thank you. And I did listen to the hearing that you went over this in great detail, and I think it is a great plan. Mr. Riley, you may remember at the application hearing, the ZBA application hearing for the house, I talked a lot about the conservation and the bank, and that was why I was so persistent with pulling things out of the 0 to 50 because of these concerns with knowing about the neighbor 498, concerns about revetments and what they do to adjacent properties. These were some of the concerns that I was aware of then. And so I feel like the application exacerbates that a little bit by proposing steps, 170 feet, several pilings. We're talking about now in the bank, not just from the bank or of the bank, but in it. And so that was just my question about disturbing the bank. One last question, though. Are you aware that there's been contemplation of sharing stairs? I do love how you oriented the stairs way to the north on the edge of the property. Very nicely placed, I believe. And the neighbor is 498, they're right there. And now maybe they're not interested, but has that been a discussion at all? Because we don't just have this set of stairs that we have to be thinking about.
I'm not aware that the neighbor has approached us about sharing the stairs.
Now, have you approached the neighbor about sharing their stairs? Okay.
No. What? The stairs to the south?
Their northern neighbor, 498, has stairs.
No. No, the answer. See, part of the difficulty with sharing stairs
Yeah.
is insurance, which
Yeah.
Mr. Nixon knows all about. You know, it's a potential liability issue. I have represented people that built stairs in a dock right on the property line. We got permission from the zoning board to do it. And it lasted about 3 years before they got into an argument about something, and and we ended up coming back and moving the thing further away from the property line. So, but I think the principal issue really is potential liability. And these properties, as you know, are very valuable. The people who purchase them have significant assets, and so potential liabilities are very important to them to be concerned about. So I don't know that that was an issue. I don't know that anybody ever discussed it with them. Certainly nobody discussed it with me. And if the staircase is not right on the property line, then that means you have to go across their property to use the stairs, which a lot of people don't want people walking across their property. So I think it's a noble idea that has not worked out well in actuality.
Yeah, well, I throw it out there. I mean, this is a vulnerable area, this bank. The homeowners, I would too, if I had access to waterfront and could get to it. I don't know that I agree with you that conservation is going to be, that bank is so steep that if you don't get stairs, you're not going down that bank. So I don't agree that we are going to save the bank by putting in stairs. I don't know if you've been there, but the slope of that bank
Yeah, I've been there.
is almost 45 degrees.
Well, I've skied on slopes that are like that, and
Well,
that is not that
skiing and
steep.
going down it, in your bathing suit and with beach chairs is a different thing. Okay, I appreciate the liability issue, but I'm just trying to explore some common ground. Thank you.
So I have a question for Teresa. Did anybody else get to ask their questions? I think I hit everybody. So my question's for Teresa. Are you there?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
great,
I'm here.
yeah, Randy Potash, yeah. So my question is, if there wasn't the revetment, would you be concerned about the coastal bank with these steps?
No. I don't think the revetment, like I said, the revetment it's a revetment, but it's a very low revetment. And the bank is still experiencing a little bit of, just typical erosion as banks do, not any kind of erosion that causes me any alarm, but it is still providing sediment to the beach. The bank is a sediment source, which is a value. So I don't think that these stairs are going to change anything, whether there was a revetment just to the south of them or not. As it was pointed out earlier in this hearing, it is a low revetment. It is providing some protection to the toe. We do have some vegetation above it, but I don't feel that the stairs I don't think the stairs are going to have an adverse impact on this bank, whether there's a revetment to the south or not.
So do you think they're not going to have adverse effect on it because they're going to be built properly and allow plenty of sunlight to go through, and it's going to be a net zero effect? Would you say that?
Yeah, exactly. I feel very confident with that. I think my only concern with stairs, honestly, and in a case like this, would be if rain or stormwater was coming from the upland area above, and it was creating some sort of channel that water could run quickly down, or that we weren't going to be able to vegetate underneath the stairs, and water coming through the stairs would cause some erosion underneath the stairs. And then at the toe of the bank where their stairs are located in large storm events, if water was trapped underneath them and churning and scouring that out, but because the stairs at the bottom are removable, I feel like as long as they're removed, they will not cause any significant impact or any additional erosion. And with that, there's the fiber roll array that's underneath the stairs that comes in from the property just to the north.
Okay. And one last thing, I know you're going to do a lot of planting, and I'm wondering, is 1 year all the planting and all the mitigation, and then next year the stairs go in, or is it at the same time?
I believe it'll be at the same time. I have not gone through a construction methodology or protocol with the property owners, but generally they put the stairs in and then we would plant right behind it.
Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Could I ask Teresa a question?
Sure.
Thank you. Teresa, so what kind of plantings are you going to do underneath the stairs?
So the stairs, underneath the stairs will be seeded and blanketed. So we'll have biodegradable erosion control blanket, and that tall grass mix, the switchgrass, the big blue stem, the Indian grass mix will go underneath the stairs so that we get that grass growing up and through it. That's generally what's going to be under the stairs. And the grasses that we're including in this mix are deep rooted. Their roots go 16, 20 feet deep. So they really do a good job of holding and stabilizing underneath. Because of the elevation of the stairs, we can get grasses in at that height. So that because of the elevation and the way the stairs designed, it really helps us plant underneath. And the fact that we get ample sunlight coming in underneath those stairs is really helpful as well. And then the shrubs will be planted around the staircase.
Anything else? Any other
No,
questions,
that's all.
Mr. Riley?
No, thank you.
Okay. Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
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 And yes, okay. Deliberations, let's see. Ed? Deliberations, if you were voting.
Yeah, well, first I apologize because I got a little into deliberations early on this, but I think this set of stairs initially, it's going to be quite noticeable, but I think eventually with the mitigation, it'll sort of blend into the environment. As far as, I like the idea that the bottom set is going to be removable or can be pulled up. And if I was voting, I would approve, but I would probably want to condition that bottom set of stairs, at a certain time of the year would actually be pulled up, because I think that's going to help quite a bit.
Yeah, no, we'd have no objection to that.
All right, thank you. Paul?
Well, in looking at this property and also looking at 500 Shore Road, I was disturbed by the steep bank that goes down there. And I, to a certain extent, thought, why are we doing this? Because it's just, it seems as if because we have the engineering ability to put stairs there, we do. The properties have been there for a number of years without the stairs. So I'm wondering, well, why are we dealing with the impact of it? And I look at our criteria involving the impact on the natural environment and the visual character, because it seems to me if we approve them here, we're going to end up approving them anywhere along that line. And up to this point, that hasn't been the situation. So I'm willing to listen to the other comments, but those have been my concerns about where I'm going to end up.
Okay, Dave Nixon, deliberations.
Well, it's difficult because I have a set of stairs where I live, and I use it a lot. But it doesn't go to a revetment. It doesn't go out to the beach. It's set back quite a bit from Stage Harbor where I live. But it's very useful. Keep kayaks at the bottom, clamming. Kids like to swim. Maybe not all of those things would be true of this property. And at the end of the day, I come down, so I look at it and I say, well, so if it gets wiped out in a storm, what's the impact on the neighborhood? And I don't think there is one. So if we're concerned about whether this is detrimental to the neighborhood, I don't think I could find that it was. That doesn't mean I think it's a great idea, but I don't think I could vote no.
Okay, Lee?
Well, This is a difficult one. I'm concerned, I was initially concerned about the disruption to the bank. I feel like less is more when it comes to disturbing the coastal bank. But now that I understand the mitigation that goes along with it, and the fact that the mitigation won't be done without the stairs, I'm not voting today, but I could vote in favor of the stairs. But I'm still concerned about other properties along that beach that are going to request, and that's a lot of stairs. So I'm a little torn.
Okay, Steve, if you were voting?
Well, I guess I probably share most of the sentiments that Paul alluded to, in that there hadn't been any stairs here prior to now. And a set of stairs just so you can get down to get to your dinghy to get to another boat somewhere else, I don't see as a large need. It's more of a want than a need. Who's ever lived there before has dealt with it in whatever way they dealt with it without having any set of stairs. I'm also not crazy about them being 4 feet wide. I think they could be narrower. If it's just a simple walkway down to the beach, I don't think they need to be 4 feet wide. And I just think that I think there's a large environmental impact, I think, on any set of stairs, whether it be this one or any place else. And if I were voting, I would probably want to see some other kind of plan or elimination of them altogether.
Dave Veach, deliberations.
Well, I guess I would say that I have kind of the same feelings and thoughts about this as Dave Nixon has expressed. I think that it's, you know, given that the engineering is available to create the stairs, do the mitigation and the plantings, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I'm not sure it's a great idea, but I think that they're demonstrating, and the professionals are indicating that that this can be done without representing necessarily, I don't see it as a threat to the stability of the bank. You know, if an event comes along and I guess I do think that I noted in the initial plan no indication about you know, a removable section, but the paperwork pointed. I think that is a very important part, and I might want to fold that into any conditioning in this case, because that might be an area where it could be problematic in a storm event. But I don't think, I mean, it's a long way up and down, but I also know from my own experience, some of my own experience, that there's a powerful draw to people to access the water. And these property owners are in this area if they have the desire and the wherewithal and all to create that access. I don't think I don't see it as my place or our place or the town's place to say, no, you can't do that. Because I don't think, and at the end of the day, if you will, I don't think that if they somehow compromise the bank, the property owner is in the front lines of any damage that will be done. And so they have much more at risk in this than the town as a whole does. So the property owners and the neighboring property owners, and in this case, the neighboring property owner has a stair out to the north side. So I don't think that I just don't feel that it's our place to say, no, it's not good for the environment, or it doesn't meet our criteria. I think it does meet the criteria that's been presented. But it's also going to be a pretty good workout going up and down that set of stairs, I'll tell you. But I don't know. I mean, I think, and there are, in an ideal world, somebody could put in a set of stairs, say to their neighbors, hey, go ahead, use my stairs. And, and there wouldn't be liability issues and those various things. But I don't think that I think we could try to encourage that kind of thing, but I don't think that we can say that it must take place. And there's a lot of reasons and problems where it would be difficult, as Bill has pointed out. So I'm not surprised there are already some steps in place. I'm not surprised that these folks would like to have some as well. And so I think it's the right thing to do is to offer my support and feel that it does not involve a detriment to the neighborhood.
Okay. Jenny?
So I'm torn too. I don't know that I agree. I don't know that I agree that the mitigation wouldn't be done anyway, because Mr. Riley himself said that you really need that mitigation to protect that slope, and it's a 60-foot slope. And I think that homeowners were going to be, to Dave Veach's point, it's in their best interest to protect that slope. There's just something inherently incongruent in my mind that we are so protective of the property leading up to the coastal bank, and then we are okay building a massive set of stairs going down in the coastal bank. So I'm just conflicted with that. When I recall the hearing of the neighbor, which is their northern neighbor, saying, we were concerned after the storm in 2018 that we were going to lose our home. I feel like we should be focusing on that and not stairs. And we do have 4 sets of stairs. I want to make a comment that the oldest set is 36 years old, and that's the property we've been talking about, 498, the northern abutter. The most recent set of stairs was 17 years ago. Now, is that just because property owners didn't have boats and didn't want to go swimming or chose to go through the fish pier? Who knows? But could it be because they, didn't think that it was a prudent idea to put stairs down that bank? I don't know. Those are the things that I've been thinking about.
So, did everybody else deliberate? No, go ahead, Paul. I'm sorry, go ahead, Dave Veach.
Just one other thing, because, and I didn't explore this or go into this, but maybe they didn't get built, but I remember in my time on the board, a request for a set of stairs down the bank somewhere in this area. Sarah, do you?
It was, CBI came for a couple sets of stairs, and it was the properties beyond the fish pier, so headed south, I guess.
Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, right?
Yeah, 2 or 3 years ago, they never got built,
Maybe that.
so that special permit would have since expired.
Okay, I remember those, but I'm thinking there was another one. I remember Ryder and Wilcox did the design.
There was one very near your home for the town. And
Oh, on
was-
Water Street.
Yeah, thank you, the end of Water Street. And I remember that one too, Dave, but.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, I certainly remember all those, but I was thinking that somewhere in this stretch, but I guess it doesn't matter. I mean, but I thought that since the time I've been on the board, there was a request, because I remember thinking, boy, that's a lot of stairs, but, you know, I can't, I don't object. I don't feel like to do it, but,
Yeah, but I've seen Dave Nixon sprinting up his stairs, so.
well, that's what keeps him so youthful.
Dave, there have been a property owner or two that have reconstructed stairs, but not built stairs.
Yeah.
Well, I'm getting the age where my
Relocated.
memory is not reliable anyway, so, okay.
I don't know if we should do a straw vote, or do you want to hear what I have to say?
I beg your pardon?
We could do a straw vote, or I could tell you what I think a little bit, if you'd like to hear that.
Sure.
No, don't roll your eyes.
I'm not rolling them
Yeah,
much.
no, I've thought a lot about this, and I've gone there a few times. So I also listened to the tapes in 2014 where 500 was like crying. They wanted a revetment so bad because they felt like the house was going to fall in the water. And I think that's why stairs weren't asked for there, or maybe other areas too, because there was a huge concern that the houses were on a very fragile coastal bank. So at first, when I listened to those and I thought about all this, I thought, why would anyone even ask, you know? But then I have actually talked to 3 experts, and I have yet to find somebody tell me that stairs on the coastal bank is going to be a problem. So you'd be happy to hear that. But I'm still concerned, like Paul is, that if we say yes to one, we have 2 more coming, I think 2 or 3. And it's concerning. And then one of the experts that I talked to, and it's a local expert, I'm not going to name names, said, well, that might be excessive. So we're all concerned, but,
That was an eye roll.
yeah, no, because it might be excessive. And so there's a concern too that maybe we should ask people to try to talk to their neighbors and find a way. Because with 500, there's also an easement on there, so that's 2 on 500, 2 sets of stairs. So it's concerning, because we're going down a steep path there, pun intended. And also, there's no way that somebody would forge a path, because I am a runner, and I'm very happy to go up and down anything that you put in front of me, and I would never make my way down there, no way. So then that's another issue, because the issue for conservation is often, we need to let them put stairs so that they don't muck up the area, you know, try to make a footpath out of it. This is not something that somebody's gonna make a footpath out of, unless you're an actual billy goat, which I don't think anybody is. So I think I'm gonna vote in favor, but I'm very concerned. And I'm not sure what Virginia's gonna vote, I'm not sure what Paul's gonna vote. But I wanted to give you my 2 cents anyway. So how would you like us to proceed?
Well, this isn't a situation where we can do a redesign, so I'd like to take the vote.
Do you want us to do a straw vote? Just
Sure.
because, I mean, there is a possible way to come back, a way to talk to neighbors about possible easements. I actually talked to somebody that's important in the town, and they also recommended that. They said, well, why don't they all talk together and try to just do 1 set of stairs? And I said, I'm not sure if they will, but I'm throwing it out there.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, because I think everything should be explored, because we're talking about putting several sets of stairs all of a sudden after 18 years on an eroding coastal bank, and it even says it on the site plan, maybe it's not this one, but one of them says eroding coastal bank. So, you know,
Yeah, those are
it's
further
tough.
north, but yeah.
But still,
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
I
you can't
understand.
deny it. I mean, but, so why don't we do a straw vote? Is that something we do? How do we do that? We just go through?
Yeah.
All right, so Dave Veach, how would you vote if this was real life?
I would vote yes.
And Dave Nixon?
Yes.
Ginny?
No.
And Paul?
Well, I guess when I look at the standard and the question of whether it's going to be detrimental to the future or established character of the neighborhood and the town. And I look at the individual standard with respect to impact on the natural environment. If I listen to the experts are telling me that the impact on the natural environment will not be of any significance, given the way they're able to do this nowadays. I still think it's crazy to be putting staircases down those kinds of shear lines when they are so steep, simply because we have the ability to do that with our engineering and so forth, and the finances to do it. But does it violate the overall special permit standard in this particular case? I guess I would have to say no.
So you'd vote yes?
So I would vote yes.
And I'm going to vote yes, too. So why don't we do a real vote? Paul?
I'll move to approve the application for 486 Shore Road. They have construction going on there now. I don't know that any of the construction issues would be applicable here. I think we just move to approve it as submitted, with the condition that the bottom toe area of the stairway be removable.
Okay.
On a specific date, I think Ed suggested.
I would suggest that a certain time of year, maybe we could ask the owners how long they.
Well, I think I would suggest, because of the way our town is acting these days, something like December 1st, so before winter. But if they're here for Thanksgiving and they want to access the water, they'll be able to do that. So that would be my request, December 1st.
It's mainly the northeasters that we're going to have the issues with, so.
Yes, the winter gales.
Winter gales, yeah, so maybe December 1st and until May 1st, something like that, but the availability to bring it back up and down.
Yeah, the water's too cold before May 1st anyway, so.
Yeah. I'm not thinking it's the water people want to access. I'm thinking it's the beach, but that's just me. It's probably the beach that they want to access anyway.
So I would add that condition, that the bottom forward section of the stairway which they've represented would be removed between December 1 and May 1 of each year.
Steve each seconds and votes yes.
Dave Nixon?
Yes?
Ginny?
No.
Dave, I'm so sorry. Paul?
Paul, yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. It's not unanimous, but congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, we have one more application. All right, Sarah, whenever you're ready, the last application of the night, of the day.
Application number 24-035, revocable trust of Stephen A. Brierton and Stacy A. Brierton, care of William G. Litchfield Esquire, 330 Orleans Road, North Chatham, Mass. 02650. Owner of property located at 500 Shore Road, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 16G, Block 3D, Lot A5. The applicant seeks to construct an elevated stairway and landings under Section 4A3A of the protective bylaw. The lot contains 39,100 square feet in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, and Section 8D2B of the protective bylaw. This was continued from April 25th, 2024.
Mr. Litchfield, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. Bill Litchfield and members of the board. Bill Litchfield here on behalf of Steve and Stacy Brierton, who were much younger when the hearing began, but they are here. They've owned and enjoyed this property for the last 4 years or so. With us is Raul Lizardi Rivera of Cape and Islands Engineering and Matt Lautenberger of Wilkinson Environmental Design, who, insofar as I know, is not in his car and won't have to pull over to speak to you if you would like to hear from him. They have been working with Steve and Stacy for quite a length of time on an important environmental shorefront stabilization project. That has been going on for a long time. The delay from the original April hearing until today was so that we could conclude our modifications to our overall plan to the satisfaction of the Conservation Commission, which we have done. You have heard a great deal today about stairs, and I will try to be relatively brief, but to tell you what is proposed and why. First of all, these stairs happen to be 3 feet wide, not 4. We've narrowed them. There is a removable section at the end, but Steve and Stacy have a 7-year-old son and a 9-year-old son. Those are two primary reasons why we think that stairs down to the shore will be an environmental improvement. Similarly, they also have parents, or the sandwich generation. They have parents who are not quite as adept as their two sons as climbing up and down the hill, and they would like to have access to the water. So we have, as shown there, a plan to locate the 3-foot wide stairs essentially in the middle of the lot. We have about 125 feet of frontage on Aunt Lydia's Cove, and that's sort of a segue into the criteria as to adequacy of site in terms of size for the proposed use. We have a 39,000 square foot lot, which is entirely adequate for the use, with 125 feet or so of frontage on Aunt Lydia's Cove. The walkway and stairs will replace an existing pathway and path down the hill. The stairs are located 43 feet from the northerly abutter, some 65 feet away from the southerly abutter, where only 25 feet is required. And again, they're sited to utilize the existing path. As to suitability of the site for the proposed use, the exact site, the coastal bank, is suitable for little but a water access use. Excuse me, and I would remind you that under our bylaw, a much more intensive use, a boathouse, is actually a permitted use in all zoning districts, and they're necessarily in the Coastal Conservancy District. Stairs are specifically acknowledged as allowable in Coastal Conservancy Districts, and provisions actually exist for special dispensations as to proximity to lot line. They can be as close to 3 feet. So the stairs are a favored use under our zoning bylaw rather than a disfavored one. We are not, however, seeking that special dispensation. As to impact on traffic flow and safety, the purpose of the stairs is for accessing the kayaks down below and a whaler as well, but there's not an impact on traffic flow and safety, nor is there an impact on neighborhood visual character. It is a large lot. The walkway and the stairs are below the sight lines and will really have no impact on neighborhood visual character. I underline the word neighborhood for those who live out in Minister's Point and look across. They won't be visible from Turn Island. They won't be visible from the Long and Smith Brown properties on North Beach, so I don't think they're going to have any impact on neighborhood visual character. There's no impact on traffic flow, on sewage disposal, public utilities, noise, and litter. And in fact, while we had considered asking for a platform or viewing platform, we decided not to. We wanted simple stair access. As to compatibility of proposed use with surrounding land uses, as we know, Ms. Fenwick does her homework, and she is correct. There are stairs at 448, 470, 498, and 520 Shore Road. There are 4 properties north of the Fish Pier that have elevated stairs, which are necessitated by the common topography from the old Payne estate, which is what this property was for years before it was divided up in 1978-79. As an accessory residential use in a water-oriented neighborhood, stairs are entirely compatible. As noted, there are others in the neighborhood, and the bylaw could, if the voters who enacted the bylaw were concerned about a plethora of stairs, they could have done what they did with piers. Under the bylaw, piers have to be located 250 feet away from the nearest pier. There's nothing like that in the bylaw for stairs. Had the voters thought about it, and they clearly did think about it because they set aside a separate criteria for piers, they could have enacted it here, but they did not. So our bylaw does not only not propose such a restriction, as I said, it also makes a special allowance for stairs. allowing them by special permit and presumably with the assent of affected neighbors to be as close as 3 feet to the lot line. As to impact on the natural environment, as to mitigation numbers, and Matt, I don't mean to steal your thunder as to part of the overall proposal, but I think the board probably is tired and would like to go home, but I will tell you that our mitigation proposal has 2,150 square feet of planting restoration, 6,500 feet of land management as to bank stabilization, 1,300 square feet of reinforced marsh, and 1,400 square feet of fiber rolls, choir logs, which we are doing regardless of the stairs. We think, however, that this is a good environmental project. Someone mentioned the prior proposal several years ago about a shorefront revetment on these post-1978 homes. There was a great deal of hue and cry over that 10 or 15 years ago. Steve and Stacy had nothing to do with it, and they are instead committed to appropriate soft solutions to bank stabilization. They've spent something approaching $500,000 to date on bank stabilization, on restoration, on mitigation, and stabilization generally, which is the major part of this undertaking on which Matt or Raul can comment. That is consistent with what their neighbors, the Humphreys, have done at 498 Shore Road. And Sarah, could you bring up those 3 photographs, please? Because this gives you an idea of that was at 498 in 2018 after the storm to which allusion had been made before. It was in pretty rough shape. The stairs were there, and if you go to the next slide or picture, that was in September of 2008 when our immediate neighbors to the south began their shorefront restoration. You can see the beginning of the loma or the marsh at the bottom. You can see the fiber rolls going up.
2018.
Did I not say that?
You said 8.
I'm sorry, in September of
Just for the record,
2018.
just in case anybody's listening at home.
Yeah, this was 4 years ago. And then after 4 years, the next photograph is what happened that photograph was taken in 2022. Our property is to the right, just beyond the edge of that scene. As you can see, the grasses and other appropriate plants are growing up under the stairs. The bank itself is much, much healthier. So I think you can see from those photographs that it is an environmental boon. This project will have a positive environmental impact because, as has been said before, stairs are preferable to exacerbating erosion by clambering down the hill, especially with the specific mitigation which is going to be undertaken in addition for the stairs, in addition to the work in progress. The chair will read a generic but outdated and frankly not actually correct letter from the conservation staff saying that the project will be revised to meet performance standards. In fact, that letter doesn't reflect revisions that have already been made, and they're shown on the plans filed with you, which a member of the Conservation Commission hearing at their hearing on May 1st called wonderfully responsive. The Conservation Commission, insofar as I know, is ready to write an order of conditions allowing the project to go forward and is merely waiting for your approval because there is no environmental impact and it is, in fact, a positive step. So I could go on at great length, but I know you don't want me to do so. The special permit being sought requires a finding that the use will not be detrimental to the established or future character of the neighborhood and the town, and that the use involved will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the bylaw. The purpose and intent of the bylaw speaks specifically to encouraging those qualities which make Chatham a desirable place in which to reside, and being able to get to the shore over one's own property in an environmentally sensitive manner is plainly one of those qualities. That is all that Steve and Stacy are seeking. On the facts and the circumstances in this location, I think you can make a finding that the stairs will be positive for the character and neighborhood of the town, particularly environmentally, and that they are in keeping with the purpose and intent of the bylaw. Raul and Matthew are both able to respond, to go on longer than I have, and to respond to any questions, but I rather suspect you've had enough about stairs for the day.
Okay, is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this project? If so, please make it known. Seeing none, I will read the one correspondence from the, let's see, from Crystal Keon of the Conservation Commission. And the commission accepted the proposal as an amendment that you filed for an order of conditions. The project is scheduled, it says it's scheduled for Phase 2 on May 22nd. You're saying that already happened. And
Well, today's May 30th.
yes, it is. Well, you never know. Maybe you will continued, I don't know. Anyway, and so it's been approved, and you still have to go back to conservation, though.
They will close the hearing and write an order of conditions.
Right.
I don't mean to put words in their mouth, but that's my understanding.
Right, okay. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this proposal? Please make it known. Or has a specific question? Seeing none. Questions from the board? Dave Veach.
Yeah, so is there, because I noticed on the stairs, on the adjacent stairs at 490, is there a little bump out, like a storage or kayak storage or something there?
There is a small kayak storage near the bottom.
Yeah, because Bill, you had said that they
But
removed.
there's no viewing platform or
But there is a storage, because
Yes.
it clearly looks to me like storage is a good idea.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think
Correct.
that's a positive, rather than trying to carry things.
We
up and
agree.
down. And then, I went back out the other day or the other night and looked again, and there's some stay, so what's what about the easement? And what's the plan, or is there a plan? Talk to me about that.
that there is an easement for the benefit of some folks across the street that's been there since the lots were created in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
We are not disturbing that easement. We acknowledge it, but it's not before us. It's not before the board today.
Okay.
We have no plans to do anything with the
You're not
easement.
doing
No.
anything with the easement, but it's something that perhaps the people who enjoy the benefit of the easement may someday,
Absolutely.
okay.
They
Yeah.
could, they can, I think they may have filed with, I believe they have filed with
Well,
conservation.
I guess I wondered, because there was something, I saw a stake that said center line of proposed path or something like that.
They did file with conservation.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, I'm thinking, path, whoa, this is not a good idea, but that's just, and so, but this is completely independent.
Correct.
That's not a factor at all with that. Okay, I think, and then the only other thing, I think, because based on our last discussion, would you be okay with a condition about
Yes.
making sure that lower section is
Yep.
seasonally
December
withdrawn?
1st
Yeah.
would certainly be reasonable.
Yeah, because my concern would be that if we don't do that, it would be too easy to forget and leave the thing in place and then get caught by surprise, you know. So those are the only questions, I
Okay.
had, Randy, thanks.
Ed, questions?
Was it my imagination, or did I see some pictures of an existing path that goes down this property? Is there an existing path?
There is a path. It's, Ron, you want to have it, if I may,
Yeah.
Ron Lazari
Yeah.
Rivera.
For the record, Raul, so yes, the property currently has a path. There's a clearing about 3 to 4 feet
Okay.
down kind of the middle, which is what we're using to align this proposed walkway and stairs.
Okay,
And it goes to the top of the eroded bank.
okay. So with this property, there's an existing path that's over the dune, and this would solve perhaps some of the issues with a path of that nature.
And thank you for raising that, Mr. Akin. If I didn't do so, I meant to, that we're taking the already disturbed area and making it better by having the boardwalk and the walkway stairs.
Okay, thank you.
Dave Nixon, questions?
The easement. We will be asked for a set of stairs just feet away from your clients. And the idea of approving or disapproving two sets of stairs that are so close together, now I don't know if they're similar or what, but it seems to me that we need to have some answers first. The answers being, is there a possibility for a shared stair? Is there not? If so, you know, why, and so forth. That I don't think that has been explored. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I would suggest very strongly that it be explored first before we make a decision, because I wouldn't want to assume something was going to happen. Or maybe there are members that don't want to see two sets of stairs that close together when they could be combined. And never mind Mr. Riley's concerns about insurance and all that, as you know, that can easily be handled with agreements. So,
For the benefit of insurance agents, it can be handled. But
that's right.
That's a separate.
Not necessarily for the lawyers involved.
That's a separate issue. There were discussions. Has it been thoroughly explored, as thoroughly explored as some people might do? Perhaps not, but Mr. and Mrs. Briarton would like their own stairs in the middle of their own property, which I don't find to be an unusual desire to have. If something were to change before these stairs were constructed, then that might be the case. But right now, this is the only proposal before the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you.
Ginny, questions?
A couple, Mr. Litchfield. Have you approached 498 about using their stairs?
We have a very, very good relationship with the current owners of 498, and in fact, they're in support of this proposal. And our shorefront mitigation is extending onto their property. However, they are the owners of 498, we are the owners of 500. The houses are further apart than the two digits would appear. Similarly, they might not always be owned by appropriate people. So there is no desire to have a shared stair. There is a desire to have, for the Briartons to have their own stairs for their own uses and their own family. I understand exactly what you're saying, and I echo my own remarks, I guess, to the fact that if the town's voters who created the bylaw had wanted a limit on proximity, they could have imposed it just as they did with piers.
Yeah, I asked about that because I see that they're listed on the application, but maybe that was because of the mitigation. Is that why?
Yeah,
Okay.
the owners of 498 joined us in our application to, I don't remember how many hundred square feet were on their property, but
Yeah.
Sorry, the sole purpose was because to connect to the shoreline stabilization that they had done 4 years ago,
Right.
we had to use their property to connect, and they had to be part of that application. So the plan was a combined plan for those.
Right. Yeah, I thought that might be it, but I just thought because that communication was already open about the bank and mitigation, that maybe that had been discussed. So I do hear what you're saying about the path, and that was what drove the placement of the stairs in the center. I don't like the placement of the stairs. They should be maybe in the least conspicuous area, not in the center. That's just what I've read, and is desirable. And then also the top of the bank is the highest there. So I don't know that okay, did you have?
So yeah, one of the things that we are trying to do is not disturb existing vegetation, and that's one of the pitch that we had to conservation.
Yeah.
So the existing pathway, it's already void of vegetation. We are proposing to reseed underneath it, and the seeding will take, so there will be some vegetation underneath the stairs and the walkway. Now, the point where it's mentioned that it's the highest point, what happens, there's two ways of looking at this. At that point where we're meeting the top of the eroding bank, that's the least steepness of the bank. So a stair, you can think of a stair that is probably 45 degrees. Not quite exactly, but if we find a slope that's already on the bank that it meets that, those stairs are not going to be pronounced away from the bank. That location that we chose plays good with the slope of a stair. If we choose another location, the stairs, as they go down the bank, veer away from the face of the bank, and it becomes more pronounced. So if you think about it, you have a bank that's this way, the stairs can only be this way. But if you have a bank that's this way, and the stairs are that way, the bank itself is not that much higher than the vegetation that's gonna be around it. So that location, it's actually playing better with the placement of the stairs.
So the steeper part of the hill is a better place to put the stairs, is
The
what you're
reverse.
saying?
The reverse. So right now, we're going to the point where it's less steep
At the top,
at the top.
at the top. Okay. But, okay, it's not a trade-off? I mean, you're also covering more, resource area with, okay. Mr. Litchfield, do you see a problem with the revetments being, so 520, their northern neighbor has one, recent, 15 feet-ish, and then 470 has an application to put them in, 3 properties in the middle. Any concern with that?
No, we know that our property, like the two immediately to the south of ours, were built prior to, or after 78. Actually, the houses further south were built after 78, but when Aunt Lydia's Cove was created as the fish pier in 1947, some years after that, the town did the low revetment, as it has been called before. The concern about protecting their property is precisely why Matthew and Raul and a lot of other people have been involved over the last many months, and why the Briardons have undertaken a very expensive preservation and maintenance stabilization program. So concern, there's nothing we can do about the fact that there's a revetment to the north and a revetment to the south. That's not unusual, that's not unique.
Okay, last question. So I talked in the prior hearing a bit about, it was different owners, but it was the same property a dozen years ago, where attorneys and coastal engineers were vigorously arguing for the protection of that bank, 500, and 498, actually, they both were.
Yep.
For the protection of the bank to protect their home. And because they're post-78, 1978, they couldn't get the revetment unless, and the requirement was unless the home is in imminent danger of being lost. Now, they were denied the revetment, but that was the, so again, I find it, do you find it incongruent at all that 10 years ago, there were vigorous arguments for protection of that bank, and here we are 10 years later.
No, we're
Disrupting.
not at all, because we are doing exactly what those people wanted to do, which is to protect the coastal bank, but we are doing it in the environmentally sensitive and appropriate manner with the fiber rolls, the planting and so forth. I'm very familiar with that case, and actually the Conservation Commission allowed the revetment. There was a 10 taxpayer action against it. The state said no. I recall it well. It, I'll call it laughable.
I figured you would.
But the Briardons don't want to go down that road. They want to do things the right way, and they have done them the right way.
Right.
Just so you know, there's a fellow with his hand up.
Oh, Matt
He
Loddenberger
might
from
be able to-
Buildings and Ecological, thank you.
Yeah, he might be able to answer Ms. Fenwick's question. I'm going to acknowledge him.
Sorry, I did just want to add that the technique that we're using in the fiber roll array wasn't developed 12 years ago, wasn't even developed 10 years ago. This is cutting edge, and one of the first highly successful uses of it was right next door at 498. And when you look at that site now, it's kind of shocking how it went from being a site where, like you said, the owners were nearly in tears talking about how scared they were it was going to affect their house, and now you have a site that we use as an example for what a absolute success looks like. And we're doing the exact same approach here. So your concern's understandable. But the approach that we're doing here, like Bill said, is the ecologically responsible way to do what they were trying to do 12 years ago.
Thank you, Matt.
Any more questions, Ginny?
No, I don't have any more right now.
Steve, questions?
Well, the questions I think that I was going to raise have already been asked. I was going to ask you about the removable section for the bottom, which you addressed. I was going to ask about the choice of location, which was addressed. The thing I was going to ask about was the easement. And I think everyone would like to see sort of a shared use there because there's a potential for 4 sets of stairs in about a 200-foot section of the bank. There's potentially 2 at 500, 1 at 498, and one that we just talked about at 486. It just seems like a lot of stairs and a lot of impact on that bank. So I know it's sometimes difficult to deal with neighbors, and neighbors don't always stay neighbors. So there might be a whole different set of people that the owners would have to deal with over time. But, you know, if anything can be done to sort of combine, you know, 2 into 1, it would be a good thing.
If that was a question to which I could respond. I understand what you're saying, but of course, you and we live in the real world, not the hypothetical world, and there is a petition for you today for the 3-foot wide stairs replacing the path. I understand the concern. That may be something for the future, but it's not before the Zoning Board of Appeals this afternoon.
Right. I understand. And then if someone could just touch briefly on a planting plan, because we don't really have anything, so if we can just sort of document it.
Sarah has them in the file because they were submitted a long time ago. Frankly, I was not considering that because, well, I know that the environment, impact on the natural environment is a concern here. I don't know, well, Matt can probably read it. We've got a 3-page document here from Wilkinson that I can provide you with, but the plan.
You know, if someone could spend, you know, a minute telling us
Sure.
you know, what you expect to do.
Sure, I'd be happy to. We are going to be putting arrowwood, bayberry, black chokeberry, Carolina rose, sweet fern, and switchgrass plugs and shrubs along the bank. Quite a bit of that is going along, you know, right along the backyard there. And then as you get to the bank itself, we've seeded it with a salt-tolerant mix that's, if anything, an improved version of what we were using next door. We've learned a lot in the subsequent 6 years about what works. We're going to have big blue stem, broom sedge, creeping red fescue, Indian grass, purple lovegrass, switchgrass, and Virginia wild rye. Those are all Cape Cod native grasses that are extremely well suited to this particular spot. They're the type of grasses that put root down, you know, feet underground rather than, you know, maybe just a few inches. So the grasses themselves are what is going to be doing the heavy lifting in terms of stabilizing this bank long term.
Okay, thank you very much.
Please. We're still on questions.
I know. One very quick one. The Conservancy District floodplain concerns, yes, VE 135. What is 135 refer
I
to?
assume that's the elevation.
Right, so it's,
The 13.5 is probably what
Oh.
it should be.
the velocity zone here, or the flood zone, is called a velocity zone elevation 13. So that's the base flood elevation for that velocity zone.
Okay. This is.
I'm sorry, it's VE 15.
Yeah.
15.
VE 15? Okay, this was 135 on our thing, but it might be a mistake, typo. No, all my other questions were answered, thank you.
Paul, questions?
I think all of my questions have been answered.
Yeah, so I don't actually have any more questions. I think it's all been addressed. My first, like I said, impulse was, this is crazy, but I still haven't found an expert that says, I'm looking really hard, but I haven't seen one. So, Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
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 And yes. So deliberations. Might as well start with Dave Veach.
Well, first of all, thank you, Bill, for framing some of the issues with respect to the approach of the bylaw and the voters to the situations that as can be applied here, you know. I think, I just thought in the discussion was taking place about the concern about the number of stairs and things and all, I realized, well, I took a quick look at my own neighborhood and just did a little Google Maps measure distance thing, and there are, starting up just north of the lighthouse overlook, there are 3 sets of stairs in 104 foot of distance, 4 sets of stairs in 140 feet, 5 sets of stairs in 328 feet. Now, admittedly, those stairs are all over the revetment and are not as extensive as these. But I'm thinking, and also thinking about this easement and something that may come along with respect to easement things. I don't want that to color my decision with respect to this proposal. I think that this proposal, as the previous one did, first of all, I appreciate that it's 3 feet wide and not 4 feet. I think 4 feet's a little excessive, but I forgot to say that the last time around. So I think that much as I said, much as what I said in the previous hearing, I feel is true in this case as well. I don't think that I think that it meets all of the criteria. And I don't think that at the end of the day on this one, I don't think that we our projected concerns over proximity of ultimately what could be a lot of these. I don't think that that's a negative. I really don't. I think even if we were to approve this, which is, if we were to approve this and then a proposal does come along with respect to that easement, it looks to me like that would be closer to the southern neighbor, perhaps, than where these stairs are proposed. And as Bill has pointed out, the bylaw makes a specific exception for sideline setback for access stairs over the banks. So as he has pointed out, in contrast to the bylaw setting specific distances between docks and piers, the bylaw makes a special exception to allow stairs to be closer together, stairs over the banks. So I don't think that we should be letting that concern guide our decisions with respect to these things. That's just my take on it, and some of it is my experience too as well. And why, I mean, I kind of looked and I watched all my neighbors build those revetments. One of them asked me if I could build hers for her, and I said I did mine and that was it. I'm not doing any more than that. And you know, they're there. You get used to it. You see them. You don't. It's not an issue. I don't find them to be an issue at all. The only issue, honestly, I find there's one of them that got built with this has nothing to do with this. It's just somehow they designed the stairs in such a way that the rise and run of the steps, it's like you're mincing your steps trying to get up and down. It's not a natural, it doesn't follow the guidelines for a normal stairway, which is too bad, but that's what happens. So I really, I like this proposal. It's going to be, and I've been looking at photos from following the storm and the effect that has already taken place on the neighboring property with the stabilization of the bank. And I applaud these folks for wanting to do the same thing and do that kind of bank stabilization. And I think as an entire package, and I think it's a good thing for the town, and I will support it.
All right, Ed, deliberations, if you were voting?
If I was voting, I would approve of the project. I think it's going to replace a path that is, going right through the bank, and I don't think it's going to be detrimental in any way.
Dave?
Well, I'm disappointed that there's no interest in making one stairway on the property as opposed to two. But I understand Mr. Litchfield's clients, that's not something they're interested in. Well, it's their property. But they will have to deal with, I suppose, with the easement on the property line, they'll probably have to put either a fence or a line of God knows what kind of bushes or whatnot to separate that from their property and their privacy. And likewise, if a set of stairs is constructed, that won't be a pleasant thing unless they can, again, separate it one way or the other. But that's my disappointment. That has nothing to do with what's in front of us. And what's in front of us is a very specific set of stairs, well presented, well designed, and it certainly is not detrimental to the neighborhood.
Okay, Paul?
Well, I have some of the same hesitations that I had with respect to our prior hearing. I've watched the erosion down in my neighborhood in South Chatham, going from the motel towards Red River, where the bank this winter was just swept away to a large extent. And the stairs that go down from the houses up there actually have pilings standing in the air because there's no ground underneath them anymore. And they've spent thousands and thousands of dollars before this, hundreds of thousands of dollars before this, and have now done another beach restoration, which has involved huge amounts of sand, fiber, matting, grasses, and so forth. It's a huge problem. The idea that we're now encouraging more stairs going down in an area where it is just extremely steep is disappointing to me. But I think, I understand the concept that the bylaw makes provisions with respect to wharves and says they can only be so close. It does not do that with respect to staircases. And on the other hand, the voters could also be thinking we have a zoning board that's going to look at these issues and make decisions when it's not appropriate, so that we would have the ability to say no. But when I look at the standard, as I said with respect to the prior application, I'm forced to say that in dealing with that standard, I would have to vote yes.
Lee, if you were voting?
If I were voting, I just wanted to say that I appreciate the explanation regarding the placement of the stairs, because I had the same feeling as Ginny. It looks like it's the steepest place, but I understand why it's there. And I was also hopeful that we could maybe work out something with the easement, but I understand that doesn't always work. So the fact that the stairs are placed where they are might be a benefit if the people applying for the easement do get a staircase, because then it does space it out a little bit. I just think it would look silly to have them right next to each other. Yeah, I'm not voting, but if I were, I would probably be in favor.
Steve?
Well, I think that the placement of the, I was going to question the placement of the stairs also, but it makes sense that it's in an area that's already been eroded, from a pathway that's been in use for who knows how long. So, to correct that situation is probably a good idea. And to, regenerate that area underneath the stairs is beneficial, I think, to everybody. The easement question is going to keep coming up. I wish everything could be settled, but I realize that, you're not always going to be dealing with the same people. People move and ideas change. So it's probably, as long as, I think it would be a good idea if it could happen, but I understand why it can't. So if I were voting, I would approve the location of this there.
And Virginia Fenwick.
So, so this photo that we had before, I know Ed, Mr. Acton is saying that he can't see it really from his property, but I'm very familiar with this beach. I walk it regularly, and you can see the stairs. I mean, this is 4 years later, this mitigation, and they're very visible. And the locker, which is on the northern side, is very visible from all the way down to Cal Yard. So I don't agree that they're not visible. I think that having 2 sets of stairs on one property and we already know how I feel about suitability of the site, is something I'm uncomfortable with. And I would like to see the easement. We've all brought up the easement holders, and I know we're not talking about that today, but they've applied to conservation. Their stakes are in. When we went to the site, we see their stakes. And I don't know, with all due respect, Raul, that I agree that just because there's an existing path, that's where the stairs should go. Because we're talking about disrupting, a whole long section of a 60-foot bank. And if we're willing to do that, we could move it over, have less disruption on the southern side, and share it with the easement holders. So that would be my opinion on this particular properties project. So for those reasons, I would not support this.
So it looks like the ball is in my court, and I actually agree with Ginny, but at the same time, I don't think that this couple would put $500,000 into a project to just make it worse with stairs. I trust that they're not stupid people. You'd have to be, really. So, and again, I've really done my homework on this one, and I'm going to vote yes, but I'm not happy about 2 sets of stairs on, and we might not even see that, who knows? One in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, so this is what we have here, like you said. And I'm sure that if there was anybody that could have tried to mitigate this and mediate it, it would have been you, counsel. And you haven't done that, so I'm going to assume you couldn't do it. So, all that being said, Paul?
I will move to approve the application as submitted with the provision that the lower portion of the stairway, which is removable, will be removed between December 1 and May 1 of each year.
Dave Veach seconds.
And votes yes?
And votes yes.
Dave Nixon?
I vote yes.
Ginny?
I vote no.
Paul?
I'll vote yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. It's not unanimous, but you've
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Good luck. And I need a motion to adjourn, I think.
I'll move to adjourn.
Dave Veach seconds.
And
And votes yes.
Dave Nixon? Oh, actually, Ed?
Ed votes yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Everybody? One at a
Yes.
time?
Steve votes to adjourn.
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
As do I. What time is it?
6:43 PM.
All right. Good night, Chatham. And our next meeting is June 13th at 2:30 PM. Make a note of it.
2:30?